Okay, we're resuming the stream now. All right, excellent connection.
Are we back?
Yeah.
I can't find your stream. Let me refresh.
I'll send you a link.
Oh, there it is. Now I got it.
Do you miss D&D?
Okay. I do.
Hmm.
I think we should do another. I want to convince Archie to get back to Vampire. That'd be fun.
I might join Archie's Vampire thingy.
Here we go. If he decides to do it again.
Yeah,
I mean, I know he's worried about getting canceled, but I don't fucking care. I'll host it. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, but you know what? I realize it's like, if I play with Archie, it would be another game. Like, you know what's funny? There was a news coming from Britain. Apparently, there was like a Nazi vampire rock band. No, I'm not kidding. Like, they were singing rock, and they were LARPing as Nazi vampires, and the BBC wrote an article about them. And I'm like, okay, maybe playing Nazi vampires is not a great idea.
You sure? Because I kind of enjoyed it.
Oh, there was another one also on the BBC. Apparently, like, some guy played D&D, and in a scenario, he had a rape scene. I think like some orcs were raping an elvish girl, and the elvish girl was played by an actual woman, and she got off from the table, and that's when the press started reporting it.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
She just left the game. She's like, I'm done with this.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it. I mean, it's on the Barely British Corporation.
Barely British Corporation.
I'm reading the article. Players distressed by gang rape role-playing game. Let me see.
Jesus, dude.
Yeah, it sounds horrible, doesn't it?
Like, I don't know if I do that, you know?
No, I wouldn't either. But like, again, it's a fucking role-playing game. Who gives a shit? Why is it on the BBC News?
Yeah. Like,
Just...
if I was in a game and then the DM said that, I'd be like, well, I don't really want to play this anymore. But it's not newsworthy. It's just you don't play anymore. Maybe if it's extreme enough, you're not friends with those people anymore. But it's not newsworthy, you know?
Yeah. Like during one RPG, the person who controls the storyline describes sexual abuse, which one female player called appalling. Organizers have apologized to her. On the Twitter, she said it was the worst RPG experience of her life, adding that the GM decided it would be perfectly alright to have all our characters kidnapped and gang raped without discussing it with anyone first. Like, no, here's my question. Okay, so you're playing a game like decapitating people, plunging swords into someone else. That's perfectly fine. It's just we draw a line. Like murder is okay. We draw a line at just sexual abuse. UK Game Expo says it's the UK's largest hobby gaming convention, and the GM said that he enjoyed the shock factor of it. It was brought to our attention that in an RPG game on Friday afternoon, a GM volunteer included content that was completely unacceptable and breached both the letter and the spirit of the UK Game Expo. The scenario included a description of sexual violence, including the players. The players were understandably distressed and shocked by the content. The player who raised the issue had received an unreserved apology for the distress caused, and the other players were being contacted to offer any assistance they might need. Did you ever feel like you need assistance after a Dungeons and Dragons campaign?
No.
Yeah, if this was in Minneapolis, I would say, like, if you're getting assistance from it, you're taking civil servants away from fighting crime.
So yeah, didn't Minneapolis go with the whole let's try defunding the police and it just backfired on them?
Oh yeah, like there's this meme with a series of chronological articles on how they're like, we're going to defund the police, and then like cops leave in droves, and then Minneapolis City Council goes like, where's the police? And then the crime raises to astonishingly high numbers.
Yeah. So when I first joined up in the previous stream, I mentioned something that the chat couldn't hear. I think it's worth talking about a little bit. So when you called me, I was watching Lindsay Ellis's new video because Sargon's in it, and she it's you want to watch it? Like it's only the first couple minutes of it.
No, just tell me about it because I just don't want another copyright strike.
Okay, but yeah, basically saying that he's transphobic for reasons, and also Blair White is transphobic too.
I mean, I guess technically it's possible. I mean, you can be suffering from LDN guilt like Gabby in Attack on Titan.
Trans guilt is that what we're talking about?
I mean, people call Milo to be homophobic because he says that he regrets being gay because he can't have children. Like he's on record saying that, and a lot of LGBT people call him homophobic because of it.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I think it's because their logic is that the end point of the gay relationship is not children, it's the relationship.
Yeah.
So if you're a gay man and you desire children, then you're kind of going against the progressive ethos, I think.
Yeah, I think they mixed politics with identity. So the first thing they did was to separate citizens based on groups of people that have arbitrary characteristics. And based on those arbitrary characteristics, you have certain politics. So if you disagree with the politics, you disagree with the identity. So it's not like Milo Yiannopoulos doesn't like gay people, it's that he disagrees with the politics that are perceived to belong to gay people.
Yeah, I can see that. It's kind of like the you're not acting black type of thing, you know? It's kind of like that, I think. It's something related anyway.
I don't think it's more like that. It's let me think of a different analogy. Yeah, I guess it's like you're not man enough type of thing, but yeah, whatever. It's still like the inevitable thing of identity politics. Like if you're going to say, like if you're a black person, for example, you're not allowed to be a Republican, right? Like you can either be like a BLM activist or a Democrat, or like you're put in a box basically, which is why they get upset when they have a black person like the Hodge twins or what's the name of that rapper?
Is it Zuby? Is he
yeah, Zuby, and there's like other people or Candace Owens, and they view them as it's like Joe Biden says in a joke, which I don't know how funny it is because it's close to reality. It's like if you don't vote for me, you're not black, and this is because of identity politics, right? Like it's not the people dictating the politics; it's politics dictating the people.
Yeah. I can agree with that. Yeah.
People in the chat are asking, like, where are you streaming? Where can they find you?
Nowhere yet.
Nowhere. Not even Twitch.
Yeah. I'm doing gaming content on Twitch, but most people don't want to see my gaming content. They want to see politics, and that will return soon. Soon with a copyright symbol beside it.
How many people watch your Twitch?
Like sometimes 50, sometimes 75. It's a small channel.
Well,
but it's relaxing. It's enjoyable in that sense.
I have not watched the Perfect Blue. A super chat asked me, but I do see this blue super chat, and that looks perfect. Dev, stop running away from Pastor Louis. Says Narco.
I haven't talked to Louis in a while. What's he doing nowadays anyway?
I don't keep him away from my channel usually.
Really?
I've had Louis on two of the streams I'm a part of the last couple months.
Because he drops gamer words. And I'm not like Josh that can drop the big one.
Oh god, it's absolutely hilarious that Vosh did that for the exact same reason that Sargon did it, and yet it's okay.
Yes, because I literally asked, it's like, how do you do it, Vosh? Like, you have a beard, Sargon has a beard. How do you manage to pull it out? When Sargon drops the big one, my Patreon suffers. Like, I get when PewDiePie drops the big one, there's a piss yellow monetization throughout the entire YouTube community. How the fuck do you do it? Like, you drop it and nothing bad happens. Like, share the wisdom so that other people don't suffer the repercussions.
You know what I think it was? I think it was because when Vosh did it, he was a lot smaller. And I think if he did it now, or if like somebody in the media who had a thing against him got wind of it, it would blow up now.
Probably,
Can confirm, being a smaller YouTuber, you can basically get away with anything.
Yeah. So basically, for those of you who don't know, he dropped the N-word, like hard R, as he calls it, hard R, the big one, and that's his words, not mine. And he used it as a, what was it, a power move? Yeah, a power move, in order to shock his Nazi detractor and to show that those words have no power over him.
Well, as we all know, the real N-word is normies.
And I watched the video, it was so cringy how he did it as well.
Yeah, it was one of those kind of things where like he did it and he kind of mugged at the camera a bit, and it was like,
Yeah, you know how it was? It's like a kid growing up in a very religious household where you're not allowed to curse, and then going at school and finally cursing and being.
Oh, it was, yeah. It's like he's being a cheeky 8-year-old.
Yes, exactly.
You see, I say that I don't even say it with a hard R. I say it with an A because I'm gangster and all that. And it's my channel, Dev.
Thanks, Scrump.
Oh god,
I apologize for my gangster vernacular.
Oh god.
So
but I did get remonetized a couple of weeks ago.
Did you?
That's good. Yes.
One of your mods is saying I need to introduce myself. I am the Scrump man. I speak for the ends. That's all I'm going to introduce myself as.
Monday Matt did it in 2010. Monday Matt did it in an artistic interpretation.
Well, to be fair, Monday Matt and Sodom doing it did lead to the whole Jabbo the Hutt thing, which has some absolutely fire remixes.
I don't know about that. I
You've not heard that? I recommend you look up Jabbo the Hutt Steam Cleaner. It is an absolute banger.
Oh my god. No, but I will. I definitely will. Just not on the stream because I.
Oh no, do not. It's not stream friendly at all, but it is hilarious.
I'm gonna post something in the chat. Do not post it on your stream, V, because you'll probably get kicked out of YouTube. But what the fuck is this?
Jesus fucking Christ.
Jesus Christ, Dave, why?
I keep like, finding or getting sent just the weirdest shit.
For those of you who want to know, it's like when you go to art school and you have a nude person sitting on a chair posing for a picture, it shows Vosh in a very predominant physique with how can we put, like, in the Bible they say Egyptians had it the size of donkeys. It's like that existed.
Well, it's Vosh as a centaur. Because like his bottom half is a horse and there's a giant horse penis.
Yes. Apparently, according to Zenith Works, Biden accidentally used the N-word.
Oh, no, he did. No, he absolutely did. I put a clip in the chat. That's the clip I put on there.
When did he do it?
Where's the clip?
Like today.
Today?
It's the tweet that says we could have had the platinum plan, but instead we got this. And it's Biden accidentally saying the N-word during his live speech.
Oh, there it is. Jesus Christ.
Get the fuck out. No, I need to see it.
Do you want to play it, V?
I
mean, it's Biden. You don't get banned for that, right?
I don't know. Like, it's...
I'm eager to hear. Nigger to hear next.
Oh,
I'm eager to hear.
I'm gonna mute myself and watch it.
Nigger to hear next.
Okay, so... he's stuttering. I don't think he's actually using the word. Let me see if I can find it from CNN.
It's funny. Well, the thing is, he's so incoherent. He's obviously a very unwell, not very put together, dementia-ridden old man. And this is just his dementia-riddled ramble.
Oh, apparently he also said it in July 24, 2020. Joe Biden was quoting racist comments when he used the N-word.
I was quoting rap lyrics, guys. Rap lyrics. It's okay. It's okay to quote rap lyrics, guys.
Thank you, Artemis Fowl, for the donation. Luis went on Rekieta without dropping gamer words. Also, the fucker can actually do it.
He didn't drop it on either of the stream that he was on with us. Like, he's been on Rose's channel with Seal of Approval with me before and been pretty civil.
So it's just the problem that he has with me then.
To be fair, you've gone on other people's streams and said it before.
To be fair, it was 2016, I think.
You went on
5 years ago.
Yeah, you went on you went on Rekieta's stream and say it.
I never went to someone else's stream and said the N-word.
I know you have. I know you have because a bunch of Comic State people mentioned it.
Could have been mine, but I didn't mind back then because I
don't remember. I'm not saying it might never have happened, but I do not remember it. I do not recall that happening.
So did you guys see that tier list of non-leftists?
Oh, hold on, I remember. Yeah, but I wasn't saying it. I was reading an article. It was basically the fall of the comic book stores, and comic book store owners were absolutely livid. So they went to this convention where they could actually speak with the people at Marvel and DC, and they were so pissed that they dropped political correctness. And the article actually stated that one of them said, like, why are there so many N-words in the comic books? Because they're not selling. And I was basically saying that, like, how pissed off do they must be in order to say these words?
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, they were so, like, the industry people were so pissed off. To be fair, like, a lot of the comics industry basically died. They fired everybody. Like, a lot of the woke artists just got fucking fired straight off. A whole bunch of series got cancelled. Like, late 2019 and 2020 was a bloodbath for the woke comics industry. The chickens are finally come on the roost for them.
But it still hasn't improved. Like, one manga, the one with the Demon Slayer, I believe it's called. Like, that one outsold more than the entire comic book industry in the West.
Man, your chat really likes Louis.
Devo, Thord Marcus says, glad to see you are still alive. Miss your content.
Where's the content?
Soon.
We have 3 of them.
I've got a stack of books on my desk, and once I finish reading them all, it will return. They're good books, by the way.
I'm gonna say, while still waiting for Dev's content, I can just chill my channel. So I'm doing a weekly stream myself these days.
Hey, Scrump, I should go on your show.
Yes, actually, you should. Would you like to come on my show?
Yeah, and I'll have all the gamer words ready, just on loop.
I will
over and over.
To be fair, we did a very spicy stream in which we had a lot of we had a recurring happy merchant joke, and that is actually fully green monetized. It was YouTube actually manually reviewed my channel recently and gave me full monetization, which I couldn't help but laugh at. Because the streams I've been making are not advertiser friendly in the slightest.
Do you know that a chess channel was taken down for hate speech?
Yes, there was a history channel too that just posted a public domain historical clips that got taken down at one point. There's been loads of them.
But I actually do know why the chess channel was taken offline.
Did you call the black pieces Game Awards?
No, they were the algorithm like noticed that they were talking about the color of the pieces, and they used words like attack and a threat, and that's.
Oh, seriously, yeah. The thing is, they only look at it in the first 10 minutes of a video or something. The algorithm is really weird, and the keywording they use is really weird.
Yeah, I mean, the algorithm is looking at the beginning because like there's way too many videos and it's too much content to go through every little second. So what they do is like I think they take random samples, but it's mostly the beginning, and it's the words that you use there, which can demonetize your video or give you a copyright strike.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, and now you can also get banned for comments. Like, there's so many people that got banned for comments, and the problem is like you don't even know what you're saying because like they will just say we banned you for hateful comments, and they don't show you what you said or when it happened.
That does sound like YouTube. I mean, this is why I don't even try, honestly. And I think a lot of people just need to, like, most people these days make most of their money outside of advertising revenue anyway. I know,
Yeah, donations and stuff. Yeah.
I know Dankula makes a decent amount of money. He does it mainly through Raid Shadow Baby. So paid for his IDF.
Is he going to call the child Raid at this point? Because there's been a lot of that.
We have joked that he should have called it Raid Shadow Baby. That was a running joke, and I do make fun of him about it in every
Oh
opportunity.
wait, has she had the kid?
I don't think so. No.
It's pretty close.
Yeah, it is relatively close, but no, Raid Shadow Baby has not been born yet.
How's the lockdowns in your country, Devo?
I wouldn't say non-existent, but people aren't following them.
It's the same here. I'm relatively rural where I am. Which is my internet kind of sucks, but a lot of people here just ignoring it too. I mean, people wear masks. Well, people wear masks in stores, but not all of them. And I've seen a lot of maskless people in stores, and
Yeah,
it's
same.
not getting hassled. It's almost business as usual here.
So the worst
honestly.
is in the cities, right?
Oh yeah, the cities are absolutely terrible. There's a lot of areas that have like super high buying into it, but this is like a rural working class community, so no one here really cares. People are just over it. I don't even see like the whole support the NHS banners anymore. Like it's basically like it isn't happening.
Yeah, for here, like this isn't rural necessarily, but it is like a mid-sized city. It's not Toronto or anything like that. Toronto is still, one, there's still a lot of cases in Toronto, and two, they're still cracking down very hard in Toronto. But here, like, they expanded the stay-at-home suggestion to be a stay-at-home order back in at the start of January. And it's like, what that means is you can't visit your friends, and you can't go except for the essentials, and businesses should be closed, and this and that. But like, people don't care. People, yeah, but people don't care. You know, like I've gone, I know what's at this point, I know what shops and what businesses are they don't care about masks, and they'll let you in if you don't wear one. They're not really like they're supposed to stop you, but they're not actually doing it.
Like, how can they stop you? Like, do they even have the authority to stop you?
Well, if a person owns a business, they can say get on a business unless you wear a mask, and the government can say, okay, you have to say that now to every single customer who doesn't wear a mask. But businesses just aren't doing that.
But even if they do, it's like, well, I did my job.
Yeah, but they have to throw them out though. Like, and they can. Like, I've seen some videos of people like getting into fights over like I should be able to come in, and it's like, well, no, because it's not your business. Like, you don't own the place, right?
Yeah.
It's not your property. So if the owner wants to throw you out, then you get thrown out. But
That's never applied equally though. You couldn't throw someone out for say other reasons. It's like the bake the cake argument. It's like you just bake the cake. Businesses are private businesses that can refuse service to anyone as long as it benefits leftist agendas. Otherwise, they are beholden to all these laws.
Yeah, I mean, you can you throw a guy out for drinking? Like, you know, someone comes intoxicated into your business and he smells and reeks of alcohol and he's scared.
yeah, you can throw them out for that. Yeah.
But what if you just don't like a guy? Like, you literally just, you know, he looks shady. Or
No, you get a lawsuit. Like, they throw me out, especially if they're a different.
Here, if there was a race angle, they would play a race angle. But you can on paper throw out like somebody who just looks shady if you want. You can do that.
Yeah, but obviously, if it's of a different race, you'll get into trouble. I definitely get.
Oh, we saw that in Starbucks when those people were just sitting in Starbucks and refusing to order anything.
Yeah, and they got tossed out. It was a big. Yeah, I recall that.
You know that happened in Germany as well, and no one made a big deal. Like, it was in Germany at a KFC. It was also like a bunch of it was a bunch of I guess African Americans from the United Kingdom, and they were very loud, so they got thrown out. And
African Americans from the United Kingdom.
Yes.
African Brits.
Yes.
African Brits.
And what ends up happening is that the German police came and started harassing them like papers, please, and asked them for their ID to show ID, and they started taking them to the police station because they were making a fuss. And I was thinking, like, man, if this happened in the US, like the media scandal would have lasted up until today. Like, imagine, you know, like you get a couple of black people sitting at a KFC and they're loud, and the owner kicks them out. They don't want to go out. They call the cops. The cops arrive. They start IDing them. They start asking for documentation. They take them to the precinct. Like, can you imagine if that happened in the US? But it happened in Germany, and that's why it's fine.
Yeah,
it'd be
China.
yeah, and China don't care though. Shit, there's something. Okay, so you've seen how this kind of took off, right? And everyone thought it was absolutely fucking hilariously ridiculous because it's a tier list of non-leftists who are online, and like the people on this list, a lot of them have like nothing to do with each other. They're completely different political ideologies, but the point is they're all non-leftist.
Yes. I mean,
And it's like they're all just the same, I guess.
It's also uncharitable pictures of some of them.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Sticks, and Hammer, you know, like the mustache thing was like him making a video mocking Nazis, like literally taking the piss out of them. But like someone who doesn't know that will look at it and it's like, oh yeah, well, the guy just has a Hitler mustache.
I don't get why Undoomed is on there, but he's very kind of standard in terms of his content creation. He just has pretty high production values. Like, I can't think of anyone, like, no offense to him, but I can't think of anyone who's less like outwardly offensive. He's not exactly a spicy boy.
Apparently he's a lol cow, so I guess that's probably it.
My favorite thing is that the same person appears twice. So I got Sticks and Hammer as skeptic, pseudo intellectual, and then you have Sticks and Hammer again on the bottom next to Devo and Kevin Sorbo. And
Yeah.
he's like,
Oh,
no,
hey.
it's like it's literally the same content. Why are they being placed?
Yeah, it's the same guy there. It's Sticks, and Sticks is a fictional character.
Yeah, God, okay.
That's his fictional persona.
Unironically, for about a year, I thought they were the same person. Like a few years ago.
Are we being razor fisted now? Is that what we are? Are we turning into like what was it, TikTok and Helen Keller? That's so funny.
Is that Destiny, by the way, next to the black and white character? Like,
He's in there.
okay, so you got Arch, then you get Sticks. I don't know who the fuck is the guy next to Sticks, and then you get the black and white character. Is that Destiny next to it?
Yes.
So it's like the only leftist in this.
Well, that's the thing. A lot of leftists do not consider Destiny to be a leftist.
Yeah, because he defended Kyle Rittenhouse, right?
Mhm.
But
It's not just that. There's like there's some. It depends who you talk to, right? Because some people will consider social democrats to be leftists, some won't.
Mhm.
It depends where you draw the line. So you can talk to some people who are using left as like a broad umbrella ideology, and that includes anybody who is like just slightly left of center. So if you're like a liberal, but you think, hey, maybe there should be like a welfare system.
I just Tim Pool was in the genuinely harmful section. I'm just wondering how.
he's got a big audience.
Yeah, that's probably it.
He's slightly paranoid survivalist angle about him, but he's still like a most.
But it's not that. It's like he's got a big audience. It's like harmful.
It's just a big audience.
Yeah, it's harmful for the left. It's not harmful for normal people.
Like if Joe Rogan's there and he entertains all possible ideas, including leftist ones, but he has a big audience.
Oh, podcast is like, oh wow, it was so weird. It's just
Pull that shit up, Jamie.
Oh, Jamie, pull it up on the Jamie, pull it up on the screen. I can't. I've had too much to go. I can pull it up. That's just Joe Rogan's entire fucking podcast. How do you get mad at that?
The genuinely harmful section is filled with people who are very unlike each other, but they have large audiences and they're not leftists, and that's why they're harmful to this person. That's what I think anyway. Yeah.
I guess
like-
it's just a tier of how big. I guess it's how big someone's audience is right now. Honestly, it seems to be.
Maybe.
Yeah, but
Maybe.
it's weird with Sticks and Sticks. Like one Sticks has the same audience as the other Sticks, but like one is.
Well, Sticks' side character is less known than Sticks himself, I think, because he's the second.
Yeah, at this
channel.
point.
He's doing a bit. He's pretending to be this guy who's obsessed with the 80s and hates the. He's doing a bit. So it's.
Okay, but to go back to what I was saying though, And shit, I just lost what I was saying. Fuck. God damn it.
Aw.
What were you saying, Dev?
I don't know, it was before you brought up Tim Pool. Scrum. Oh yeah, okay. Where the divider is, right? So there are other people who say that the divider between the left and the right is socialism versus capitalism. So you can be the most universal healthcare, pro-universal healthcare person out there. You can want as many possible tax-funded programs and all this stuff. Like, but if you're still capitalist,
Yes.
you are a rightist,
No, you're a
not a
fascist.
leftist.
No, you're a fascist.
Okay. But I've spoken to a lot of people who say, okay, the social democrats, the social liberals, they're not leftists, they're rightists. They're on the right. And it's like, well, if you are making left and right mean socialism and everything else, then I guess you're correct. But that sounds really fucking stupid to me.
Well, that's the way it's really become. There is really not much of a supposed moderate left anymore. It's all dragged along by these elements that are being very much like there's this conglomeration of ideology that's pushed by the mainstream media, a lot of mainstream leftist politicians, which is kind of this neoliberal with socialist edge, but actually just an oligarchy thing going on that they have. But the problem is that the social stuff and the identity politics stuff they push incredibly hard, which really doesn't fit into I think the moderate social democrat leftism. It's like super hard Marxism, but instead of class struggle, it's race and gender struggle.
Mm-hmm.
So there really isn't like it's almost like the myth of the moderate Muslim at the moment. The actual institutional power on the left is very extremist in many angles. So that's just kind of how it is. And yeah, they do view those people as not part of their.
Now, here's what's interesting because I've listened to a few breadtubers now over the past few months, and I've wanted to learn about this
To
stuff.
be fair,
Right?
they're not really. A lot of them are crumb tubers.
Yes, that's true. They are
like,
YouTubers.
I'm willing to bet the person who made the meme that we're talking about didn't watch even half of the channels that are on the list. But okay, go on. Like, tell me about the crumb tubers.
So I've listened. I mean, well, Vosh is actually a breadtuber. There's a few crumb tubers that I've tried to listen to as well, and I've talked to a bunch of them just to understand where they're coming from, right? Because you can't make a good argument against this stuff unless you know it, at least on some level. So I've kind of tried to figure it out. And they do not see like the Robin DiAngelo types as leftists.
Yeah, I know.
They call them. They have a label for them. They call them radical liberals.
Mhm.
and I say, well, hold on. The whole point of the Robin DiAngelo types is that they're taking the Marxist process of proletariat and bourgeoisie and applying it to race rather than class, and they're applying it to gender rather than class, or they're applying it to trans status rather than class. It's the same. It's like the same neural pathways in your head. You're just kind of switching out the wallpaper. That kind of thing, right?
I listened to Vosh's argument against Robin DiAngelo, and that's not
Okay.
So
Okay.
the thing with Robin DiAngelo is that you need to, from Vosh's perspective, and I think he's absolutely right with this. Like, she wants to sell her book, and she wants to give consultations to corporations, which is why she, in Vosh's mind, okay, this is where I start to disagree with him, is that she's being disingenuous in her critique, and this is why she says all white people are racist in order to show that companies who hire white people need her in order to fix their problem.
Well, that's why all the left ends up. All the left ends
Yes,
up.
but like
saying,
with her, it's blatantly obvious. And the second thing is that they don't believe her method works. And for example, when they talk about whiteness in leftist circles, they talk about institutional racism. So not people, it's like institutions. But Robin DiAngelo, when she says like you need to be less white, then she talks about individuals. And this is where Vosh had the disagreement with. But basically, like, they view them as corporate parasites, like the type of people that take money from corporations without actually fixing the problem. And they view people like her making racism worse rather than go away.
See, I find that absolutely hilarious because Vosh did an entire stream with Destiny where he argues that socialists do not have any kind of moral imperative to enact socialism if they find themselves having a lot of money.
Yeah, but Vosh does whatever Vosh wants. You know, it's just
Yes, yeah. It's because like, okay, the word grifter is thrown around a bit too much because the whole point of a grifter is that you can't actually believe what you're saying, and it's kind of hard to tell if you talk to somebody and you disagree with them. What does make them a grifter? They might actually believe what they're saying. You know,
Well, there
Like,
are
people are
some
grifter.
exceptions. I mean, if you're a socialist, then you say that the rich should donate money, but the rich are not donating, then yeah, you're a grifter.
Yes. So that would be Vosh, by the way. But like, when it comes, well, just straight, yeah, I don't have any problem saying it. But like, people call Sargon a grifter, and it's like, well, no, because he actually believes what he's saying. You can disagree with what he's saying, and there's probably critiques to be made, but he actually believes it, so he's not a grifter.
Yes.
It's now just used to be like someone I don't like.
Yeah, I don't
That's
believe
what
like there's
grifters
right wing
use
grifters. It's like if I want to grift, okay, what I would do now is that I would go on Vosh's channel. I would say that I had an epiphany and I realized how harmful my content used to be up until this day. And then I would throw some logs and show how not you guys are in the private. You know, and after Vosh absolves me of my evil ways and says, you know what, V, like, okay, yeah, you're one of the good guys now. Then I start making leftist content, and then I'm not afraid about getting demonetized. I'm not afraid about like I can do power moves without feeling.
There'll be articles about you. You'll get media coverage and
then-
right video
And then V, you can transition, and it'll continue even further.
I would identify as a Zephyr or something. You know, like I would just be something more hip for
Vihina.
the new generation.
Vihina, oh god. Someone's gonna face that at some point.
Apparently, a guy named Hunter Avalon tried that. Let me see what Hunter Avalon did.
Oh god, no, that's gonna be fucking cursed. I think the people you're interacting with there are a lot of the very. I think you've come across kind of a subsection of the online leftists who are very old-fashioned Marxist socialists and are starting to understand the problems with what's currently being put forward. But the main problem they have is that the whole class struggle thing, the whole working class proletariat practice really died in the 80s and 90s.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it died in the 80s when the Western governments really pulled so far ahead of the communist bloc, and then the communist bloc fucking collapsing. There's no real appetite for old school, old-fashioned.
When they talk about the factories, I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, being a factory worker in 2021 is the best job you can have. It's like, why don't you talk about being a censor at Facebook and having to watch kids getting raped and shit? You know, like, that's horrible. And like, there's an article about how Facebook treats its employees. It's harrowing. Like, apparently one of them had a heart attack, and no one wanted to help him out because like they wouldn't be able to fill their work quota if they did.
Well, see, I don't know exactly what you mentioned there, Scrump, because I think the socialists have changed tactics to be like, less. Like that's kind of the angle now is worker co-ops.
You said less, and then you completely.
Sorry. So yeah, they're less about state centralization and planned economies and more about worker co-ops now. And that's the big thing.
Because
Everyone talks worker co-ops.
Yeah, they're trying to imitate Vosh is what they're doing.
But still, like there is a tangible difference between the state owning the means of production and the means of production being owned by the workers in like a democratically elected workers' council or something.
Yeah. Like,
So
I don't get it. Like, they can have worker co-ops now. I guess
Why
like
don't they just do it?
Yeah.
Why don't they just go? If worker co-ops are so much better than the alternative, why not just go out and found a whole bunch of companies that are worker co-ops?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
I mean, they have the money. Like, Vosh has the money to fund shit.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where's all the fucking money going that people like what's her face the trans one? Like, I can remember ContraPoints gets some people like that. Like the whole Chapel Trap House people. They make that. Where's all that money going? Surely they could invest that into a worker co-op. Maybe they should reinvest that into people who help them out with artwork.
I mean, Sargon actually started the business, and I think Vosh has similar funds like Sargon does. So why doesn't he start the business?
That's the whole, there's been a whole string of people come out and accuse leftist content creators and leftist public figures of exploiting them financially. I know a lot of people who
Some fine
It's Sarkeesian, Hassan Piker, Zoe Quinn back in the day, people like Shepard Traphouse, like anyone who employs editors or uses community art, so everyone, it seems in Breadsheet is string over the people around them, and just in private is trying to take all the money they can out of it and give nothing back. It's interesting when push comes to shove, it's like, well, that's my money. It's like, it's different. Now. Some people start paying taxes for the first time.
But Ethan Ralph actually wanted to donate more money than the entire grifting left.
That's true.
And to be honest, if we continue the joke, Monday Matt ended up donating even more. Let me read some super chats because we got
piling up.
If you make a chunk of money from finding resources for DV, is that a donation? Yeah. So Bobby Q is the admin of Loot Gamer, and I found a Blizzard employee for him, so he gave me a video card, a 390 RTX for that fine. Damn it, V.
He gave you a 3090.
Yes.
That's like $2,500.
That's a lot.
I gave him an ex-Blizzard employee.
Fair enough.
I mean, I make him more
Where's my
money than
30?
me. So damn it, Dev, make videos again. I will go to your house and slap you with a salmon if you don't.
It'll be back soon.
Well, like I said, if you're craving that fix, you can always tune into Starman and the Boomer on my channel. Got a shield? You got a shield?
Dev, long
shield?
time no see, and he plans to resume the weekly sip.
Yes.
African Americans from the United Kingdom. African United Kingdom. African English, there we go. Despite Metro Detroit being a big city, most people here don't care either. For most of the lockdowns, it was business as usual, besides restaurants, which had to be closed. CV, you make good content, and I send you super chats. Thanks for the stream. Oh, thank you. For the cat fund, I appreciate it. Thank you, Rusta. And I'm 30 minutes late because YouTube won't notify me. Please don't immediately delete. I miss you, short file Otaku. Goddammit.
Soon. I mean, I still do my gaming stuff, but the politics are returning soon.
No,
So
nobody cares about the gaming stuff.
listen here, Scrump. I care about it, and that's what matters.
The easiest way to debunk the worker co-op bullshit is to say it's self-election bias. The people that would like them join them. Turns out that most people don't. Isn't it like when you want to join a company and you buy stocks and the stocks gives you voting rights in the company?
Yes.
Oh yeah, you can do that. You can invest in a company.
Yeah, like how the fuck is that different?
Because they believe that only people who actually work and labor at a company should be able to own the stock. You shouldn't be able to buy it.
But that doesn't make any fucking sense.
Well, like there are functional businesses that do. They always hold up Monsanto because that's like their crowning achievement with worker co-ops. But the problem with Monsanto.
Monsanto's fucking evil. That's what's the problem with Monsanto.
Oh, wait, is it called Monsanto? No, hold on, let me look it up.
Something
Monsanto.
I think is right.
Yeah, Mondragon. Sorry, it's Mondragon.
Oh right, I thought you were saying Monsanto's not called. Monsanto's an evil agricultural multinational.
The Mondragon is the biggest worker co-op. It's got like 80,000 employees, and it is somewhat of a success story. And they have proven that model has some benefits. You know, they are more likely to withstand a larger financial collapse, for example. But they've discovered some problems. Is that because everything is done through voting, promotions are much more likely to happen through voting blocks than through anything like merit. So you get like, who should we promote to this position that opened up? And people vote, and then it becomes like there's parties within the company.
Isn't that just like a regular company though?
Not necessarily, because you can definitely have a company that is run properly where the person who is competent gets promoted.
Yeah, but like for the companies that I worked at, and even the hospitals I worked at, like usually the people get promoted is who sucks out better to the boss.
Yeah, there's definitely problems with that too. Like no system is perfect, right? But I think you are less like, what's the way to put it? A place that is a worker co-op, and also a place that is unionized, in my opinion, it will raise the floor, so people have like a better lowest standard, but it will also lower the ceiling. So there's no really like striving to get ahead.
Yeah,
if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely. Well, I mean, there is striving to get ahead, but you need to just strive to suck up to the boss and spit on the people below you.
Yeah, I'm gonna look it up because there's something called the Mondragon scandal that happened a little bit ago.
Oh, someone said something really clever. Startup companies are almost worker co-ops. Join company, get stock grant, different shares for different people though. Founders keep control.
I've always enjoyed being like a third-party contractor, to be honest. That's mainly what I do, and that's mainly the relationship I tend to keep companies. It allows me a degree of autonomy.
I know what you mean, Scrum, but people are saying that like working as a contractor is exploitative because you're still working for them, but you don't have any of the benefits of being permanently employed. And some people will value those benefits more than the value of being autonomous, and that's kind of the.
It's kind of funny because it's not these people that advocate for socialism.
No, it's not. Like a lot of people who are like, have the people who advocate most for socialism are the people who don't have marketable skills.
Yes.
Anyone who has a marketable skill knows that they can, that the market actually favors them generally. So they don't want socialism because they're doing quite well in the market because they have high market value. It's what was I going to? Yeah, it's socialists are like financial incels in that they are. No. They are communists and socialists and far leftists are basically financial incels in that they think because they're not getting it, the system is rigged against them, and they want to force everyone else, force themselves. It is.
Yeah, I also think like the people with white guilt, like Robin DiAngelo, they're like, when you have a sexy girl on Facebook and she says like all men are bastards, and then you have a man replying to her and it's like, yes, Wayne, I absolutely agree. Yes, men are horrible people and blah blah blah. It's literally like that type of person.
It is. It's like I said. They just behave like incels, but instead of sex, it's money.
Yes.
I'm not getting money, therefore everyone hates me and the system's bad, and I have to force myself onto people because no one will give me money. And dude, get a fucking job.
Here's the question: do you think Marx was a follower of or inspired by the teachings of Sabati Zevi? Look him up if it doesn't ring a bell. You might find his part of history enlightening. I mean, I'm pretty sure like Marx didn't come up with all the concepts himself. Like usually, most of these philosophers they get inspired by people before them, and I think you can trace it back to the French Revolution. But I never heard about Sabati Zevi.
Well, there's definitely like a history of socialism before Marx got involved, for sure.
Yes. I mean, I think it starts with the Equalité, Fraternité, Liberté. And it wasn't liberté, believe it or not. It used to be private property. One of like the slogans of the French Revolution used to be private property, but they got rid of it.
Huh.
Yes. By the way, Devo, you used to go to university and you learned a lot of leftist bullshit, right?
I did, yes.
When was the red pill moment?
When I dropped out, because I dropped out and went back. When I dropped out and got a real job. Seriously, like I was doing like physical labor and I was working with working class people. And I spent like I think a year and a half doing that. And it was just understanding what the working class actually was and what they actually wanted. And being outside and on my own for the first time.
So to go back to the incel analogy, it's like you stop being a financial incel when you had sex.
I guess that's how it works.
As soon as you start getting some, suddenly you realize that you don't have to force people. It does work. I've been using this analogy for a little bit. Just it works so well. They are to money what incels are to sex.
It's kind of like they vote against their interests. It's like it's almost like they don't want to get a job because you get a person like Trump that creates more employment and they like voting against them. So
he's so many things though.
Yeah, it's like the teachers union that right now, especially in the United States in some places, they get to stay home but still make money because they're in the public sector. So they're like so super privileged to the point where it's like why would they ever want to go back to work?
Well, they don't. They're protesting against schools being reopened.
Yes, I mean one of their leaders, one of the union bosses, was talking about how she's afraid to go back. It's like her safety is at risk and blah, blah, blah. And then she posts a picture of Instagram with her flying thousands of miles during the pandemic and being on a beach at a resort, having a vacation. And I'm thinking it's like, okay, well, yeah, I mean, there's a conflict of interest now. Like, these people should not be paid during the lockdowns. Like, if they don't work, they shouldn't get paid. Or at least they should get like a
Well, that's the
a pay
thing.
cut.
It's furlough. The whole furlough thing is really what's made people cooperate with this. And like the whole, the Trump bucks and now there's going to be the Biden bucks. It's basically it's like that Charlie Clyde Boys meme. I'm going to give you $100 to fuck off. It's
But
basically
then it's like, how much? They're getting 1,600. Right, let's say they get 2,000, right? What the fuck do you do with 2,000? I mean, you can't invest them, right? Like, you can't put them into a business so that you get more money in the long run.
some people did make some stonks with that. But yeah,
Oh yeah, the GM. Yeah. But like, what do you do? Like, if I got $2,000 tomorrow, right? I would pay my mortgage. I would pay some bills. But at the end of the day, it's like I would rather get a job if I was.
Yeah,
unemployed.
it's like that. Really, like, a lot of people talking about like the whole what was the Asian guy who promised Yang, the whole Yang Gang
Yeah,
thing about wow, $1,000 a month, guys. It's like
Yeah.
that's fucking nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose I could live with it. Depends on what city, what state, the size of your house. For
Oh,
some
dude, here in the
people,
UK you can do that. That's like 700 quid.
yeah, but like, it depends where you are. If you're in a rural area and you get some husbandry and farm animals, I think you can.
Yeah, that's like balsa stuff. And I actually think we need to go to a more small population self-sufficiency society, but that's just my long-term thinking there. But no, it isn't. And it inflated away anyway because costs would just go up. Because if everyone's making $1,000 becomes even more worthless.
No, absolutely.
Okay, so
Yeah, go on.
I looked up some of this stuff regarding Mondragon, and basically the situation is, despite all of the real benefits of worker co-ops, there are some downsides. And in terms of Mondragon, one of the downsides is that they solved the problem of lack of capital by simply drawing on the bank accounts of every single employee. So if the business fails, all the employees are responsible for that bankruptcy, not just the owner, because everyone is the owner, and that can be a serious problem.
Yeah.
But also,
Oh, wow. Okay, so they actually solved the whole risk problem. No, the thing I tell leftists is that the reason that you don't own part of like the restaurant you work at when you wait fucking tables is because you're not taking financial risk.
Yes,
If
exactly.
you want to buy part of the restaurant, go to the owner and say, hey, I've got 10 grand, I want to buy fucking 10% of your business.
Yeah, but think about it this way: like, if a company that big goes belly under, and how many 800,000 workers, I think they can pay the damages.
maybe not.
Oh, it depends how big the holder in though. If they're not like a limited liability company and everyone else is responsible for it, people end up losing their homes and losing their entire life savings if the company gets billions of dollars in debt. That's terrible.
Especially, I mean, I don't know if the law is the same like in Romania, but in my country, like, let's say you have a loan at the bank with 3 other people, then the bank can just take the money, the assets from one person, and then the guy who lost all because the bank took everything away from him has to sue the other 2 people to give him back like what they own to the bank. Like, the bank just takes away your money, and then it's not their problem.
Well, the other two problems they mentioned, well, like the first one was, sorry, the second one was the voting scandal, where people were promoted more by cronyism than normal because of voting blocks. That's kind of to be expected when you have like family members in there and you're voting for family members, etc. But the third one, and I think this is the most interesting one, is that it is much harder to get a job at Mondragon than at their competitors. Because like all the variables considered, because they don't have like a place for slackers, basically. Because everyone is taking on risks, so everyone has to pull their weight more so than normal. So like the big downside for the worker co-op model is that there is no place in such a society where everything is a worker co-op for the guy who just wants to like work at a grocery store, punch in, punch out, do the absolute minimum work, and kind of slip by and not get noticed by anybody, and then move on in a year or
That's
two,
a good
right?
thing. That's an advantage, not a disadvantage. I mean, if
Depends.
Really?
Well,
Not really, because there are some people who, frankly, not to be mean about it, but like they won't go anywhere else. And like, what would you do with those people? Like, if you eliminate all the slacker jobs because everything's a worker co-op, what do you do? There's no space for them
I
anymore.
won't say it's because I think it's because that they're all very paranoid about other people joining their business as well. It becomes almost like a closed shop. In that
yeah, I mean, the more
regard.
people, it's like worrying about immigrants, you know.
Yeah, it's
Because
hilarious.
like any person that comes in, they lose their voting power. So
Yeah,
you have less of a say in the company, the more people that come in.
It's funny because they end up building like almost walls. It's like the whole thing of okay, we need unrestricted mass immigration, but we also need closed shop unions. It's like
Yes.
one of these things is not like the other. One of these things is not the other. Also, hi, Sargon.
Hi, Sargon.
Hey, Sargon. Someone said
so-
that socialism is 1,000 years old.
I could see that, to be honest.
Probably,
Yeah.
There's doubtless going to be some Greek thinker who's like, you know what we need to do is get rid of all the property. And it's, shut up.
Actually, there is. Let me find him. Hold
There
on.
we go.
Didn't you say that in the French Revolution they were saying instead of liberty, fraternity, and equality, they also had like private property, and then that was removed?
Yeah, there was no, it's not even that was removed. There's an entitlement to things. I have to go look it up off the top of my head. I've been reading into it recently. Did that a while ago. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. It's been a long day. I've had the fucking a year of taxes for both myself and the business, and it's just like I'm just fucking exhausted. To be honest.
Shouldn't put them live and call this stream highway robbery.
It's totally mundane though. There's just nothing exciting about it. And the thing is, any amount of like doing anything else would just slow down the process. I'm just shoot right, get next one. Literally, I've got hundreds
Why don't you pay an accountant to do that?
because I've got to send them the receipts. I am paying an accountant.
Oh yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah, I
It's
send
like
the
a
receipts
business
as well, but like
too.
I only get the like I screenshot the payment
Yeah.
processor and then I do the ones.
Yeah, no, I have access to all of the receipts.
Yeah.
It's just I don't bother collating them because I'm lazy, right?
Yeah.
And the reason I had so many is because I set up this business. So all of that is business expenses. So it's like great, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to pay very much in tax because I spent fucking loads. But it's really boring. It's really. And I've been working myself quite hard recently. So
So now that you're here, tell us, where does morality come from?
I think it's probably natural. Probably the product of being social creatures.
I think
Yeah,
those in
that's
power create morality and then enforce it in order to justify their
Yeah, we're
leadership.
talking about the mechanism, not the origin. There.
Oh, like who comes up with the proper concept? Like
But the need for it arises.
like for example,
within
misgendering
society.
should be immoral. Like who came
Yeah,
up with that
the
concept?
rules could be whatever the rules are. I mean, the people in power are always going to make those rules.
Yeah, but I think it's the people in power that come up with the concept. Because if I were to, for example, 6 years ago, say that misgendering should be immoral, no one would listen to me. Like, it wouldn't-
That wasn't created by the people in power. That was created by academics and filtered down to the people in power.
I mean, if you view academics as the church, I would consider them in power.
Well, it's not direct theocracy then. If that's the.
You sound so. You sound so.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
tired.
I've just been working really hard.
Oh, dear. Did you see Joe Biden accidentally saying the N-word?
Yeah, you did.
So we link.
It's supposed to.
Yeah, it's under. We could have had the platinum plan, but instead we got this.
Yeah, I can't put it on YouTube because the AI doesn't understand it's Joe Biden. You know.
Yeah.
And I don't
Joe
know,
Biden.
if Joe Biden can be treated as a black rapper.
Joe Biden doesn't understand he's Joe Biden, so.
I'll read one more super chat. Medieval Europe was communist. Marx was trying to cram medieval ideas about economics into the industrial age.
The whole thing about like them talking about the ancient origins of socialism kind of reminds me of the whole medieval
What
DOC
the
thing.
hell was that? I'm not even memeing. Like what? Why does he say the N-word? Just N-word here next. What?
You know what it is? It's a power
No.
move.
I'm starting to wonder if it is. I'm starting to think that whoever writes his teleprompter is just like, look, I can literally put the N word in here and nothing's going to happen. But I'm going to make the President of the United States say the N word and he's going to say it and everyone will just ignore it. Watch. And I honestly think it's getting to that point that these are reasonable hypotheses. I honestly mean it. There's an evil will in the Democrat Party, man. It's got to be acknowledged.
Did you know that Vosh said the N-word and then justified it?
Oh yeah, it doesn't matter.
Just like you.
Yeah, he said that he said the big one hard, and it was a power move in order to show those Nazis that they have no power over him with words.
Jack Conte should ban him for Patreon. If there's any ethical consistency, that's why everyone's pointing that out.
You know what should happen? Like you should get in a room with him and he should explain to you how it's done. You should tell him
Yeah. I'll go on stream and he can say the N word at me as much as he wants, and I will have to continue calling it the N word. This is literally the society we live in, where you have a political privilege over me. And it's class. It is unironically a class of people to whom the rules no longer apply. It's really concerning if you care about like things like the rule of law.
What if it's about like the reach? It's like he was smaller back then and he did less reach than you.
No, it's about the
He did less damage to the
This is why
fabric of
everyone's pointing this out. It's not like a miraculous revelation. What it is everyone saying, well, here we go, mask off time, you know? Like, you can see it, everyone can see it. It's no great analysis to notice.
You're killing me.
It's just the way it is, man.
It's,
Have you not noticed that the entire right seems to be in total disarray at this point? Like, they're living under a tyranny and they're just coming to terms with the fact that they're actually living under a tyranny.
I mean, yeah, who is the right rallying against? Running around, sorry.
No, they've got no one. Trump's gone.
Yeah. Like
It's because for the last 4 years, instead of pointing out the actual moral deficiencies of the left and how evil they become, all they've done is go, wow, can you imagine if the roles were reversed? Can you imagine, guys? Can you guys imagine if this was the other? Wow, this is such a
Is it not apparent, conservatives, that the left doesn't care about consistency?
I made this meme with a gravestone, and it's like, here lies conservatism.
Yeah,
Imagine if things were reversed.
I just don't believe that you made that meme, but it was very good.
I don't think you made that meme.
I made that meme.
You didn't make it.
It's made in Camtasia. Go look it up. Like it even has like that little dot from Camtasia as a center.
Okay.
I've seen that meme before you used it.
But fair enough, you made this one. But,
You did make that meme. Congratulations, that's a good meme.
and don't get me wrong, it's a very good meme, and it's exactly true. The conservatives have got to just accept that the left don't care. Like Vorsh is just saying to his hero Destiny, why would I bother with ethical consistency? And Destiny is so fucking amazed. Like, I can't believe I came out of a conversation with Destiny and someone else with more respect for Destiny. You know?
Well, I can
It's
explain
such a
why.
weird,
I can explain what's
weird
the point in pointing out hypocrisy. When you have a person telling you how to live your life and lecturing you, you look up to that person if you think they live the same life. But if it's proven that they don't live the same life, then people stop listening to them. So obviously for leftists who are already indoctrinated, pointing out hypocrisy is not going to change anything. But if it's a person that, for example, I don't know, listens to a leftist giving them sage advice and then it's proven that the leftist is being a hypocrite, they're less likely to listen.
I mean, it's
Is that true,
asymmetrical.
though? Is it true? Did any of them seem to give a shit that they're being monumental hypocrites?
I mean, okay, if I were to tell you to go on a diet, then, you know, like, okay, if I was a vegan and I would make a channel saying that eating meat is wrong and people who eat meat are pieces of shit, and then
Well,
it turns out
rather
that...
than giving me a hypothetical, just answer that question. Like, where is it that we can look to see the BreadTube audience giving a damn?
Oh, there's people getting red pilled. No, there are people that say that they got red pilled when they notice that people are hypocrites.
Yeah, I think it happens. It's a slow process, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, then what the right wing like YouTubers probably should do is really start going hard on BreadTube, because if they've got this really quite glaring weakness right out in the open, that
oh yeah, terms of service harassment.
You don't have to speak to about a BreadTuber individually, and you don't need to do a response video. Just talk about the phenomenon. You know, just
Well, the
talk
issue is that even the mainstream left don't care. Like they say it. Go and look at what they say. They say that they are willing to do anything. They think that Trump was Hitler, therefore anything is morally responsible for removing Hitler.
MAGA is a Nazi movement as far as I'm concerned.
You know when the left might start talking about principles, it's when the far left is going to go after the moderate left, and then the farther left is going to go after the other left, and they're going to realize like, shit, we need some rules. Like we need.
By then it's just too fucking.
well, that's already happening now, though. There's definitely begun a split down the middle of the left, where like the I just want healthcare, don't want to overthrow capitalism types. They're being turned on by the socialists.
Yeah, I bet they're going to turn into fascists.
But they don't care because all these people are just fucking weak. They are such weak people. You look at what they say. They've spent the last 6-7 years in an echo chamber being pandered to. They can't stand harsh language. Never mind any kind of like campaign against.
I think they can stand harsh language. I mean, they use harsh language themselves. It's just they have power. Like here's one of the things is like people went like, why did no one treat RGB the same way the left treated Rush Limbaugh? And it's like if you treated RGB the same way the left treated Rush Limbaugh, you'd get banned.
Yep.
Like, and that's why it's not that people who don't like RGB wouldn't say bad things about her. It's just that if you were to say those things, you would get banned. Meanwhile, if you say something bad about Rush Limbaugh, you get promoted.
I think that's understating. I think Republicans do have a code of not trash talking someone when they just for dying. Like I think that is accepted as a moral principle on the right.
Who was that guy?
Listen. I'm not saying they're all following it. I'm not saying they do it religiously that they're perfect, but they accept that it is a bad thing to do that, right? Whereas the left doesn't even think it's a bad thing to do that.
Who was that senator that died of brain cancer recently? The one that was pro-war.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg, yeah.
Yeah.
You mean yeah.
Something with J, I think. John.
He ran in 2008.
John McCain.
Sticks
McCain,
made
yes,
a video and said that he doesn't care, and it's like it's a good thing.
Oh, you're pain in the brain McCain.
Yeah, Sticks made a video that was mean to him. So I guess like as Sargon said, there are exceptions.
Well, to be fair, John McCain was the only person who got turned down by the Make-A-Wish Foundation because they couldn't drone strike Middle Eastern children.
Oh come on.
I mean, he wasn't exactly a good guy, but like
Yeah, he was a warhawk. That's why people.
Yeah. But like I agree. It wasn't very polite to do that. It was wrong to do that. Right?
It wasn't widespread either.
No,
I don't think the right would celebrate when Biden eventually, like 25 years from now, dies of
MAGA
old
will.
age.
MAGA will.
You think?
Yeah, I think the MAGAs will.
I don't think people hate Biden though. Like that's the thing.
He's totally corrupt. And
He is, but like people don't hate him like the left hates Trump. Like there is not that hatred is not there.
Yeah, it's not about Biden himself. That's the thing. Biden's clearly a fucking empty vessel at this point. Look at him. Like he just said the N-word on TV.
Head empty, no thoughts. He is.
Like, imagine if Trump had said the N-word once on TV.
Wow.
Just once. It'd be non-stop. N from Trump.
Well, no. Because then what he does is like, I said the big one, hard, and it was a power move.
The thing I always said is, if the left want to have a debate and an argument in a political sphere with no morals, you should show them the logical extension of that. I think the left need to beat over the head with their own stick a bit harder.
Man, the left is the ideology of 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4. At this point, I don't think they give a shit.
It's asymmetrical.
It's emotional. Like literally, it's like football teams. It's like
it's irrationalism. Yeah, deliberately irrational. It's not about like the fact that they're parading around a definition of woman that is recursive is actually like the deepest embarrassment because like that you're literally saying I have no logic. You're literally saying, I don't care about consistency. I don't care about
Well, yeah,
facts. I don't care about right and wrong. You are just stating it, like intellectually. And it's like, okay, well then, why the fuck would I pay any attention? Why would I listen to you? Why are these people
Because bad things happen to
controlling
you if you don't.
everything?
You get punished if you don't. That's why.
Yeah,
Like,
but
they're not
why are they
convinced-
controlling everything?
Because they're not interested in convincing you. They're interested in tyrannizing you.
But how do they get to the point where they can tyrannize you? This is the thing. we
Oh,
have to answer.
well, because the establishment,
Universities.
yeah, the establishment realized that if they treat people like a Californian prison where they spread citizens based on different factions and pit them against each other, it's a lot easier to govern.
I don't know, man. I think it might be like Twitter itself, to be honest.
It's not. It's been building since we decided there was this post-war consensus where everything is moving towards a global.
No,
dystopia.
in a direct material way. You know, like what is the mechanism? And it seems to be Twitter mobs. It seems to be.
Yeah,
Twitter seems to be the
I
platform
think those
for
mobs existed, but back in the day, like those mobs really had to be pissed off to go out and
Yeah,
protest. Now it's like it's just a click of the button.
It's a hobby.
Yeah.
Protesting online is a hobby.
they even have
Canceling
like this,
people is a hobby.
they had this blog where they would give medals to people that managed to cancel others.
Yeah,
Um,
it's really awful.
Yeah.
But it's Twitter itself, and like I was thinking about this earlier. I'm amazed at the assumption that nothing would happen in the real world upon the mass deplatforming of Donald Trump. Right? So I mean, if you think that Donald Trump is the new terrorist leader and all this, then surely if you take this kind of unilateral action against him, you're going to expect a huge kickback from his followers, right? You're going to expect because like there has been a shooting at YouTube already.
Jesus, man.
These things exist on the map. You know, like, I'm not in favor of anything like that. But what I'm saying is like these things happen. You know, and so did they not at some point think would that happen to us?
No.
You know, and so I guess they don't. You know, I guess they don't think
But
that's
it's power.
possible.
Like someone donated a super chat for $10 meant that and said the left are winning because it's easier being evil than being good. Being good requires effort.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, I think it's on the horizon, right? Again, for the record, do not do this. Do not under any circumstance. Holy shit! But I think terror attacks might be on the horizon, which is terrible. So I don't want that to be the case. But look at what's happening, man.
So what you're saying, Slaven, is that some of you guys are all right. Don't go to YouTube.
No, I'm not joking. This is the thing. I'm not joking. I'm genuinely concerned about all this.
Oh, so no, it's terrible. And
I don't believe in the Tim Pool civil war scenario.
I think it's inevitable.
I don't think it will happen.
Are you
I don't think it'll happen
Yes.
either. I don't think it'll happen
I don't
either.
think it will happen.
Because people's lives are still too comfortable for that.
It's not only that. It's for
People's lives are getting really uncomfortable.
Man, for the first time in human history, we live in a society where technology has advanced to the point where everything you do is controlled. I mean, look at how easy it was to apprehend the people at the DC riot. Like in a couple of days, just boom, bam, like all of them apprehended. If the establishment wants to fix a problem, the problem gets fixed. And it's
Sure.
because
But
of the,
conversely, look how easy it was for them to get into the Capitol.
oh yeah, like Nancy Pelosi was
So-
actually told that there is going to be security issues, and she refused to call in additional support. And it was that bad that when the impeachment happened and they were talking about witnesses, the Democrats initially said no witnesses, but then they wanted to bring a person that like heard it from a person that heard it from another, so like a second-hand witness. The Republicans wanted to call 300 witnesses, and if they said like if they can't do that, they just want to call one, Nancy Pelosi. And she would have been asked, it's like you've been debriefed on the problem, you knew that people were coming. Why didn't you have police officers being strengthened by either the National Guards or at least like have more police officers?
Yeah.
And
It's
she
a valid
didn't want to.
question.
Like she didn't
If
want
you, if you look at the pictures, there are more journalists inside the Capitol than there were.
Yeah,
journalists.
to. I mean, my assessment is that everything that takes place is because the establishment allows it.
They're not gods, and I think it's wrong to think that they are. Right? They are just mortals. They get surprised by things as much as we do. Right? They just have a greater frame of reference, and so it's important to not let this kind of omniscient thinking become the norm.
Can you imagine if, like, 100 years ago, you would tell a person that I will have the ability to know where you are, I will have the ability to know
Oh, yeah.
what you talk
Totally.
about, what your hobbies are, what your friends and families look like, where you're going on vacation, what you're purchasing? That person will legitimately figure it out.
Yeah, but it's not. It's just having a greater percentage of information about things. Like there's nothing godly about it. And they're still human. They still have to filter all of this through human perceptions.
Oh, yeah,
And
absolutely.
they're
But what I'm
just
trying to
as
say is that
valuable
the
as
technology is so good, like, you can literally just find out who the heads
So
of
when they know what to look for, they can find it very, very easily. But when they don't, they have no idea it's there.
I guess, like, the GME thing caught them by surprise.
Yeah, there we go. That's a prime example. They're not looking for it, and so they don't notice it. And suddenly, boom! Suddenly they can punch back and oh shit, you guys are starting to take a wallop in the face.
Yeah, but you know
Change
what?
the rules.
I'm willing to bet that from now on they're looking for it.
I will say that they are infinitely, well, they want to be powerful, they want to project power, and they are genuinely evil in things they do, but they're also incompetent. They have become decadent and lazy in what they do. So it's this mix of extremely immoral intent, but extremely inept kind of implementation.
I wonder
Like
if they view
it's
themselves
not-
immoral, though.
No, of course not. They view themselves as the moral crusaders.
Well, they view an action that they take as moral because they're taking it.
Because I know
That's
people,
the thing.
I know people that are immoral, and they will confess, like, yeah, I'm immoral, but I'm doing it to make money. So fuck everyone else. Like, those people do exist.
Fucking Romanians.
At least they're honest.
Yeah, let's be honest about it. It's not like Vosh making an excuse when it really is just grifting. Like,
Yeah.
Well, it's like when I make offensive jokes about people, but I know what I'm doing is being deliberately offensive. I don't think there's a greater cause there. I don't think I'm
It's not
morally
virtue.
justified in doing
Oh yeah,
it.
like they won't say that they're doing it for a greater purpose or a greater good. They will say like, no, I'm doing this because I'm making money and I can take care of my family, and that's all that matters to me.
They don't.
There's
Have
a, like, they don't seem to.
oh, you're not talking about the VTubers. Sorry.
No.
Right.
It's when they say shit that seems absolutely appalling, it's not them trying to be hyperbolic. It's not them even trying to be funny. They just believe that.
Well, I think they also, some of them, like, can just be edgy. Because I found out it's like there's no more edginess on YouTube. You know, like,
Yeah,
you don't have
I know
South Park
that.
anymore, you don't have Beavis and Butthead. But on BreadTube, they can be edgy as fuck.
Oh, good for the privileged.
well, yeah, I mean, they call themselves the scumbag left, and they contrast themselves with the snowflake left. So the snowflakes are like the ones we know what snowflakes are at this point. But the scumbag left, they have no problem being offensive. They have no problem with being hyperbolic. They have no problem with insulting you to your face.
Apparently, there's no repercussion for saying the N-word for them either.
Yeah,
Even
yeah.
though they all think it's deeply immoral.
Well, I think one of our blind spots is that we've been dealing with the snowflake left for so long that we're not used to dealing with the
It's not
scumbag
that I'm not
left.
used to dealing with them, man. It's just that the terms of service do not apply equally. Like, how can I have a conversation with someone where I'm fighting with one hand behind my back and I have to be extremely careful about what I say, and the other person can just say whatever the fuck they want?
Well, that's true, but it's also not just that. Like, if you were to make the argument, what happened to the tolerant left argument, that would not work with these people
Yeah, obviously.
because they never were. And they
Yeah,
never
and
claimed
it's
to be.
not even like
They literally say we don't believe in ethics and glass
Yes,
Israel.
but it's not even Jesus fucking Christ.
Oh my god, it's like,
not
and then they
even
start
the tolerant-
fetishizing horsecock and shit like this. It's like, right, okay.
No, it's like-
I mean, the scumbag left is pretty grim.
It's not
Well,
just
they're more
tolerant
like
left.
the pedophile left at this point. But
Well, I mean, that's a lie,
It's not even that. It's like the words liberty, freedom, tolerance, acceptance, stereotyping is wrong. You cannot find them in the media anymore. Like, none of those words. You read the papers, right, Sargon? Because it's
Yeah.
part of your job. When's the last time you read about liberty, freedom as a virtue?
Well, I mean, literally today, a Guardian columnist we covered on the podcast literally came out and said that actually we're against free speech.
Yes.
Owen Jones asked Nezra Malik, how does the left make the case for free speech? And she's like, we don't, we try and cancel people.
But it's not just human
And then
rights.
also today on the podcast, we happen to also cover the New York Times literally railing against critical thinking.
Yes.
And it's just like, right, okay. So I don't think we
Was that
have
the one
common
about
ground
not going down the
with the
rabbit
left on those points, right? we just don't agree. They're against the things we are for, and they don't seem to be interested in.
How do they justify that fascism is wrong then? Like, what aspects of fascism do they like?
I don't know. The racism.
It's not.
No, like, Benito Mussolini, hold on,
I think it's honestly the racism of fascism.
Well, hold on. Benito Mussolini has a quote where he says that the delirium of race has no place for nationality. Let me see if I can find the quote.
I agree. You could probably create an intersectional progressive fascism if you were a leftist.
Nazbol gang.
I mean, the Nazis. No, hold on. Like the Nazis were racist.
Longism.
Longism.
Literally,
Christ.
longism and honestly, fascism itself, you could
Nazis.
repackage in progressive language. Like all of these socialists are cancer.
Okay, so this is a quote from Benito Mussolini himself.
Race is an illusion. Yeah.
Yeah, like he says, race it is a feeling, not a
You
reality.
have to say that if your racial makeup is Italy.
Hold on.
You don't
It's
have a claim to.
It's hope from non-white Italians.
He says that it is a feeling, not a reality. 95% at least. Nothing will ever make me believe that biologically pure races can be shown to exist today. National pride has no need for the delirium of race. This is so progressive
Totally
for the time.
progressive.
This is so
Because he was a
fucking-
socialist.
It's not
And
only
the
that, like
language
at the
hasn't really
time.
changed that
At the time, there were almost everyone was racist. Like even the United States was racist as well.
Yeah, the United States obviously was racist.
Yeah, like at the
The-
time.
yeah,
it
no,
was-
hang on, but the socialists weren't. The socialists weren't that. A lot of them were very much like pro women's rights and anti-racism. even
Yes,
though-
that's true.
Right, and it's because their ideology literally is based on what you believe. It's okay to be a bigot because someone thinks wrong. Any physical characteristic, because it's all Kantian, any physical characteristic is irrelevant to them. The reality of the world doesn't really exist. Everything is decided in theory.
Yes.
Right, and so that's what matters to them. That's why you thinking wrong means you should be gulagged. It's like Jesus.
But yeah, I mean, the
Horrible,
benchmark,
horrible people
like if a progressive wants to know if you're a human being or a piece of shit, they will ask you one question, and it's always this question: Do you believe
trans women?
Yeah, literally, like this is it. Do you
Yeah, I
believe
know.
trans women are women? This is the benchmark. And it's not like do you treat trans people unfairly. It's not like
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
do you
it cares about
discriminate
that.
towards them or anything like that. It's like, do you believe? Like, what is your belief?
It
And-
is a demand of a statement of faith.
Yes, like if you're J.K. Rowling and you answer incorrectly, they cancel you. Like J.K. Rowling is on board with every single leftist principle. Like she's mass immigration, she follows labor, she donates to leftist NGOs, she promotes leftist causes. She just said that men don't have uteruses, and that was it. Like that was it. And like,
She makes one biologically accurate
no,
statement.
just think
and
about it.
that's
Like, what else can you say that will get you cancelled if you're a leftist? Like if you're a staunch progressive. Okay, like the N-word apparently isn't problematic. You can be Justin Trudeau and paint your face black. You can do a lot of the things, but like where they draw the line and like literally the benchmark is do you believe trans women are women? Like they ask you that on Twitter.
Dev, I like that tweet. This personal internet feud shaped the political landscape for half a decade. It's nice to have that kind of influence, really.
You don't, and like you talk about bread tube, and all that, they don't really have much influence either. I think what we're missing is like at the grassroots level, and the street level, things are very tense, both in the US and the UK. And just because people have been silent, just because it's not being published in the media, doesn't mean it goes away. There's a massive gulf between what people actually believe and what the media is trying to project onto them what they believe. Like I said, we saw with the US election, where there are all these falsehoods, all this cheating, all the fraud. You know, Joe Biden isn't the most popular president in US history. It's an illusion. They're having to all those national guards still in the Capitol sleeping in parking structures. I hear from some of them. I hear from people in intelligence agencies, I hear from people in the DHS and the Department of Justice and the Pentagon, and it's not good what's happening out there. And just because you're not hearing about it doesn't mean it's not happening.
This is a point I was trying to make in the Parthenon section of my Discord, right? Because one chap in there is who was it? Just I'm not attributing the wrong person. But one chap, Vindy, like I like all these guys obviously, because I talk to them quite a lot. And Vindy is like getting a bit blackpilled on it because the left are incredibly powerful. I mean, they just control everything, absolutely everything, and they have the power of life and death over Republican prosperity. And so no, they really do. They really do. I'm not oversaying that at all. And so it's like, okay, that is a blackpilling moment. Don't get me wrong. It's a blackpilling thought. You know, it's genuinely terrifying. But the one saving grace of this is that the left is massively overstretched, and what they have built is not built on firm foundations, and so this makes it unstable. And so this persecution of MAGA is coming from a place of weakness, and that's what's driving. Because nobody is looking at this and thinking, yeah, that's reasonable. Yeah, that's
But usually,
reasonable.
like
Half
the
the country,
you're forgetting the possibility that someone that's even more far to the left can win this struggle and instaurate stability.
No, I don't think that's really possible. I
You don't think Stalin can come and beat up Trotsky?
I don't think that you can. I mean, they didn't create. Trotsky created the Red Army. They didn't create the Red Army. You know, like I don't think Joe Biden.
No, yeah, but Stalin did the army purge. No, well, they're purging the military from what I understand. Like they,
Yeah,
they
but the rank and file soldiers. I can't imagine Joe Biden ordering people to fire on civilians or something like
no,
that.
they don't have to. You know.
Okay,
It's
I'm
just
saying
like
if it comes down to a civil war, I don't think Joe Biden has the political capital to become Lenin. Right? I don't think he has that, and I don't think he would think of it like that either. I don't think he's planning any of that. And I think that they are desperately trying to maintain what they have grabbed. I think they've grabbed more than they thought they would have to grab in order to win, and they've grabbed everything now. And now it's like, oh god, actually, you know, now we have to do a good job. Like Jen Psaki is a great example of this. She came in with a lot of confidence, being like, yeah, okay, the adults are in charge now, and the media's all on our side, so we're never going to be asked a hard question. It's like, we get genocide. What are you talking about? I'll circle back. All this shit. Like, it's showing real cracks in Biden's administration, and Biden is not the man to stand up to it.
Hillary
He's
would do
not. Sorry.
Hillary would do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about Kamala Harris?
She's not got anything obviously just corrupt.
Yeah, but like, don't you think she'd be a good figurehead?
But what I mean, right, it's not just in this regard either. It's in all of these other aspects. Like, alt tech is actually growing very significantly. Like, I think, honestly, if everyone got waxed from YouTube, like, just, you know, name a content creator of any significance, I think they would still be able to make a living on alt tech at this point. And that's not good for Silicon Valley, really.
Oh, they wanna pass a new what is it, like 230, that if you want government protection against liability, you need to censor hate speech, and they want to have like this,
Which is what they, like I was going to say, they've realized that that's the case, and that's exactly the reason why.
Yes.
And so this is going to continue. The war isn't over. You know, like they've had a surprise victory over Trump, and now they're going to start kicking it up a notch because they don't know what else to do. Like,
well,
the
I mean,
market's fully come off.
it's the worst part for the left to be in power because not only do you have the pandemic, you also have an economic recession coming. So.
Well, the problem that we have is the left doesn't even need to be in power to influence its agenda.
Yeah, they showed that. They showed that in the last 4 years.
They showed that in the Trump administration. It's being very, very, very handily illustrated with Boris Johnson and his massive 80-seat majority. In fact, they won't even let his own MPs vote because he's scared of them defeating him.
By the way, did you guys notice there hasn't been any new referendums? And they used to consider referendums the soul of democracy.
Yes,
Like,
we haven't even had the London mayoral
No,
election
we've only had like 3 referendums in this country.
No, but I'm talking like European Union.
We're not really a referendum country.
Yeah, but I'm talking EU.
Fine, you know, that's
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean-
that's going to just descend into barbarism, obviously.
Well, no, but like obviously, like not every single issue, but like when you have like important nation-altering events, like for example, refugee crisis or you know like quarantining and stuff like that. Like, don't you think like the people should be consulted at least?
Well, I mean, I do, but then I wanted to leave the European Union on that basis.
Let me pass through some super chats really quick. I'm 30 minutes late. Don't delete it. Yeah, I already read this one.
Parliament's move was not supported by Trudeau.
Yep.
Unreal. Everyone's like, yeah, this is clearly a genocide that's going on in China, and Trudeau's like, oh well, is it? So
Well, yeah,
it's
but
like,
it's how the
what?
Chinese, it's how the Chinese project power. They buy off politicians.
Yes, they do. I know.
Massively,
We know. We all know this. And
Well, they
so
failed this
all of
time, but yeah.
But no, they didn't fail. Justin Trudeau held the line for the Chinese.
Well, yeah, but he still got outvoted in Parliament, though.
Yeah, but that should be so politically untenable, man. That should be like the Canadian electorate should be like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, that
Everyone
should be-
voted to condemn a genocide. You're like, yeah, cultural norms.
That is coming. That is coming. Trudeau is not well liked. It's coming.
Did
Oh,
you see that the
fuck,
US
man.
is donating money to the Wuhan Institute?
Yeah.
Yep.
2 stacks Biden is making his money.
Nyrod says, how do you counter that kind of question? Well, I mean, don't counter, like, do you believe trans women are women? It's a question that if you answer anything else but yes, then they will think you're a piece of shit. They're not going to waste. Like it's a test to see if you're a progressive person or not.
Yeah, it's a shibboleth.
Yeah, like that is it. Like
Yeah,
there is no countering it.
Trans rights is a shibboleth.
Yeah, like you can't avoid it. There is no way you can avoid this question. You either answer yes or they will think that you're in the out.
Again, at a grassroots level, it's also incredibly unpopular.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I think even people that answer yes and you might go down with it, like, can you be so certain that they answered yes because they genuinely believe, or is it like they're afraid of the repercussions?
I mean,
No.
if you look at what the British Labour Party had to do with backing off with the trans angle, they've been forced to do it because their electorate came out in force and told them that if they kept doing it, they would abandon them.
Yeah, I mean,
Very, very
yeah.
forced.
The trans ideology is not popular with regular people, though.
It's not popular with the regular left, even.
Well, I mean, Biden went with trans people in sports, so I don't know. I mean, I don't see people complaining about it.
It's almost like they let them eat cake kind of
Loads
thing.
of people complain about it. The Olympic Commission did something on this, didn't they?
Yeah,
Hold on a second. Scrum, you mentioned that it's not popular with the regular left, but it seems to be.
No, what you see online are the activist left.
Yeah,
i.e.
that's true.
Anyone who's over the age of 35 who traditionally votes left. That is the main bulk of the voter base of the left.
But if you don't
Most
believe it, you can't be online because it's against the TOS anyway. So like everyone that would answer no would probably not be online to begin with.
I mean, sure, but like earlier in this conversation, you mentioned that the center left has been squeezed out and it's all socialists and everyone else now.
It is, but the thing is, those people aren't considered on the left anymore. They're considered now as undecided voters. A lot of the traditional voting base of the left has become apathetic and apolitical. All you've got left really are the activists. Like, that's what's happening. A lot of people are just
Well, okay.
that's why we're in the position that we're in.
No, I get that, but that also means that the regular left is no longer the regular left; they're just whatever. And therefore, the mainstream left, which is now the socialists, or at least is becoming the socialists, they're fine with this stuff.
Again, what I'm talking about is that it's unpopular with the traditional, what would be the left. It's unpopular with traditional
Working
people-
class voters.
Yeah, with the people
Yes.
who vote left traditionally. It's the normal working class Democrats and the working class
Yeah, I
Labour
think most
voters.
people don't give a fuck,
Yeah.
man. I mean, you know,
No,
like,
they do. We've
well, let
we've
me
seen all
articulate it. Let me articulate it, okay? Like the right to switch genders, I think is not like okay, you get that now, so you get a right that you never wanted. But like for example, the right to have a family on a single income, that is taken away from you.
Yeah, but the joke is that Labour don't care about labourers.
Mm.
That's true,
It comes
that's
up, right? The Conservatives don't conserve, and Labour never care about
Well, you're
Labour.
right. The main reaction to trans rights stuff, people don't give a shit because nothing applies to them.
As long,
Well,
as long as it doesn't apply to their kids, but as soon as it applies to their kids, they don't like it, man.
you know what,
The working
Bob?
class is very socially conservative because you need that for prosperity when you're working.
Oh yeah, like
class.
marriage is the best way out of poverty.
Absolutely, and they know it, right? They know it from direct experience, and so I really think that the pushback will come from the working class person having to basically be like adult human female. Oh,
You know what blew my
simple
mind?
as, which is exactly the right answer.
simple as.
Yeah, adult human female.
Like, you know, like
simple
there were
as.
people wearing
Woman-
a shirt
woman
with
means
like,
simple as.
like there was a woman having a shirt with
Woman
a
means
definition.
tits, simple as.
Fucking crap. You're going to get the.
When North FC posting is what they do.
Yeah.
But you know, like I was watching Married with Children, which is a comedy show in the United States, and it's considered to be it's considered to be misogynistic and whatnot. And I was thinking, it's like, how the fuck is Peggy oppressed? Like, you have a working class man, a true salesman, that with one wage managed to have a family of 4 and a big house. And I was thinking, it's like, you know, maybe it's a comedy, so they're like just making it realistic. But I don't think so, because if it was realistic, then like if you would have had Married with Children and they were living in a palace, then people would notice that it's a startling difference. And they
It's
would,
because it was originally written by boomers, and boomers lived in a generation when that's possible.
yeah, like
So,
how is that a bad time then? How is that oppressive? Like if you
It's not. We don't agree with the feminists.
it's like if you're a true salesman, you can have 4 kids. Sorry, 2 kids. And Peggy, like, how was she oppressed? She wasn't doing any housework or any house chores. And yet, like, I would just give her money. Like, where's the oppression? I mean, okay, maybe she wasn't sexually fulfilled.
Hence the entire basis of the comedy Married with Children. But like, we're fucked, right? We are actually genuinely fucked. And I keep thinking that's a lot. Like, I don't know what options the right feels it has other than turning inwards and figuring out and building anew, right?
I
The
think
right
they're
just
going
build
to go on the don't step on me mentality. Like they're just going to, segregate themselves into small areas and just, like not allow people to thread there. That's literally it. Like that's how I think the right gets radical in America, at least. Like that's the American mindset. Like this is my land, this is my property. Fuck off, leave me alone.
Yes, and this is probably what the right needs to do. Because I think the right has essentially got to build fortresses for itself.
I think like people should stop supporting like progressive
Basically
shit.
compound
Like for example, Coca-Cola. You know, Coca-Cola is caught, promoting that bullshit. Just buy Pepsi instead. Now you can say, well, Pepsi does it too. Doesn't matter. Coca-Cola got caught. They need to get fucked. You know, like that's how you suggest it.
Coca-Cola's, I just don't think the scale that we've got enough resources for that.
Yeah.
No, but it's like, okay, someone puts a right-wing movie or right-wing views. And this is where I disagree with the Quartering. He said, like, he wouldn't watch Ben Shapiro's movie if it's not good. I'm like, no, I would fucking watch it right now just because I want to send a message to people that want to create independent films that there is a market for you that you can tap and there is life after cancellation. And even if it's a bad movie, I would still support it just like right now. Maybe like in 2 or 3 years if things start moving
just
up.
for political reasons,
yeah.
because of the political
Because the left does
environment.
that.
Yeah,
The left does it. They absolutely. Like I watched the article on Polygon right now. They're talking about the new game that's coming up with Harry Potter. And they're pointing out how the game developer was part of Gamergate and
Do you guys
criticized.
remember it?
I do remember the story, but I don't remember whose channel it was.
No, I remember watching a bunch of his videos back in the day.
Yeah, I remember that too.
Yeah,
I don't know the name of it.
He was a game.
He looked, he was a game developer, wore a suit, and wasn't an edgy boy. Made a very family-friendly summary of what the problem was. Very good, as I recall.
Yeah, and the left wants to cancel him, like for things that they did years before. And I looked at the forum of Polygon, and there were people. It's like, oh fuck that guy, I'm not buying the game anymore. And I'm like, okay, that's a normal person. Like, why would he buy a game? Like, if he's a left-wing person and he has his own ideology, why would he support people that are not of his ideology? Why would he give power to political opponents? So he literally votes with his wallet. I mean, I definitely understand these people now.
Well, I agree.
Jared says, thank you, V, for resurrecting the Skeptic Hangout. Love the stream and all you guys. Also, Sargon Rekieta wants to do a dad stream with you and Shad, and soon to be Dad Dankula.
Oh, dude, I'd love to. I'd love to.
That's
Naming
true.
some of my favorite YouTubers there.
You want V for helping me, says with Pro Cool. What about this? And when Biden dies in the unknown future, I believe the only one celebrating would be the far left. MAGA would because it's the end all life does matter, and even if you disagree with them. Yeah, I think like the far left definitely don't like Biden, and I don't know. I mean, I personally wouldn't celebrate. I don't think I'd ever celebrating someone's
It's
death.
acceptable. It's elder abuse is what's going on with Biden.
Yeah, but let's not pretend that Biden isn't fucking corrupt, because he is.
Yes, yes.
No, but like if someone dies, I just don't say anything about it if I don't.
It's
have
still
anything
sad and
else to say.
uncomfortable to watch that person trounce out in public and obviously have obvious dementia.
Yeah, yeah.
But I just can't find myself having any sympathy.
This entire conversation, you guys have been saying the left is winning, the left holds all the cards, and etc. And I'm not actually sure of that because the left hates Biden, and Biden's faction. It's not us, but it's not the left, and that faction seems to hold a lot of the cards. Like the corrupt neoliberals, they're holding a lot of the cards right now. It's not necessarily the left.
Sure, but when I'm saying the left, I mean in the broad tent sense, as in
I mean,
left-wing
basically,
politics.
yeah,
It'll
like
be an
that-
advancement of social justice in whatever form doesn't threaten the Biden administration.
Yes,
right?
like that
But
faction
it'll
will
still be
unite.
advancing it. It'll still have consequences.
Well, I don't think Biden or his Kamala's going to be Kamala, obviously. They're not going to be calling for any kind of socialism. They're not going to do
Social justice is what they're calling for, and that's the problem because social justice is kind of like Nazism.
No, I mean, I agree, but I feel like we're talking about two different things here.
But
because
they're still doing the things the SJWs want, and that's a real problem.
it is, but that's not the same thing as what the socialists want.
Yeah, but
They're also-
socialists.
they're also
They're
putting
the
the
useful idiots that can get put against the wall by Biden.
Yeah,
I
that,
don't really think so. I think
That's
that
the though.
I think the socialists will become the dominant force in the Democratic Party within their lifetimes.
Absolutely.
I think they are the dominant force.
No.
Like they absolutely are. The Biden administration has henpecked Biden, right? They're doing all of the racial justice stuff they've asked for, and they've been expanding massively the potential of redistribution. You're right that they're not going to turn them socialist. Like when Biden was like, I'm not going to commit to relieving $50,000 of debt and things like this, right? You're right, they're not going to become socialist. It's not going to be Bernie Sanders in charge, but that is hardly that much better when it's the social aspect of reality that's going to fall apart.
Well, sure, but like the Biden's faction and the socialists, in the absence of anybody else, would absolutely go to war with each other.
Yes,
Yeah,
but like,
and the Biden administration will go to war with the socialists.
I mean, it happened in the New York Times. Like, what's really fascinating is that a lot of journalists got fired last year during the riots because they suggested that the military should go in to stop the riots, and now you have military stopping the riots and still being in DC, and no one gets fired. Like, can you imagine how salty those journalists must be?
But it is going to be a woke regime. It's just not going to be the dirt tube regime.
I feel like the dirt tube just wants to make money, man.
It's still all pushing towards a global power singularity, though.
Yes.
They're still agents of the Great Reset. They're still people who want the pseudo-socialist global government in which you were a peasant.
I think that there are some differences that make them not exactly aligned. Is definitely not in the long term.
But will it be a
But
peasant? I
we're
mean,
just saying that, yeah, Biden's going to put them up against the wall as and when is necessary.
I don't
That's
think
just what's going to happen to the socialist revolutionaries.
It doesn't matter what flavor of establishment you are, what flavor of left you are, because they're all really pushing in the same global direction. Because we have this supranational power that is superseding national power, and all the leftist governments are actively supporting that. They all want this, and they all want to club together, and they all want to make it so that you can't live anywhere that has any sense of freedom. That's why they hate Bolsonaro. That's why they hate a lot of what other governments are doing. That's why they hate Poland.
It's what we can call the technocracy. It's the scientific view of the world given supremacy.
it's not even science. It's science mixed with political opinions. Because I keep saying it's like science tells you that urine is a good electrical conductor. It doesn't
Sure,
tell you not to piss on a fence.
Yes, I'm not simplifying it, but it's scientism then.
Yeah.
Scientism, yes.
It's the rule of the scientismists.
It is the worship of objectivity to the point that you lose out on other
They
vectors.
don't believe in objectivity, though. They believe that gravity is racist. But it's deferral. They do. There's papers about this. They
They
believe
2 plus 2 equals 5.
in the deferral of responsibilities of authority. That is the ultimate goal of the left, it seems to be. They want to be coddled. They want to be children. They
Well,
want to be looked after like children by the state.
it's power is the only legitimizing factor. That's what they're saying. That's what Vosh is
Yeah.
saying. That's what they're all saying. But this is why it's so easy to just join Biden. to be honest.
The ultimate conceit of the left is that they would rather be a slave in a system they agree with than be free in a system that they don't agree with.
Well, yeah.
So let me bust with some more super chats.
right.
The reason the left gets 2 positions of power is because we as a society fetishize credentialism, such as university degrees.
Yep.
This is also true.
I bet Vosh would say the reason he can say the N-word, that it's because it's rules for me, but not for the... No, he actually said that the reason he did it is because he used it for righteousness. Like, he used it for good.
Yeah.
The right
Literally
doesn't
ideological
understand,
privilege.
the right doesn't understand that you can concede the battle, but never the fight. The left understands this, and the right does not. Yeah, that's true. Like, the way I like to say it is that the left never stops campaigning.
Yeah.
The right after they win, they stop campaigning.
Well, that's why tactically I think that they have an advantage. They are better at mobilizing people. Like, the thing is, a corporation like Coca-Cola isn't doing this because they have a commitment to leftist ideas, even though a lot of leftist ideas like open borders do benefit
Don't
from
underestimate that, man. I think a lot of them are developing a commitment to these things.
Well, they're developing it for self-interested reasons. They don't have an ideological.
Oh, I think they're doing it as a
Well,
union busting technique. Like, if you're going to... Like, now it's not employees in Coca-Cola where the company oppresses you. Now it's white employees of Coca-Cola and black employees of Coca-Cola. And
there's no consequences for being leftist. That's the way the system's set out.
yes,
And
like, if I was a business, I'd be leftist. No, hands down.
But not just that. You've got to remember the leftist arguments are conquering arguments in normal society, right? So if you're the CEO of Coca-Cola and you're worried about delivery schedules or whatever it is, and then someone comes along and goes, "What? Define woman." You're like, "What? Trans women are women, aren't they? Why? What happens if I say no? Oh, you get cancelled. Yeah, okay, they're women." but then you've got constant deluge of propaganda at you as a CEO.
But
You've got
did
these
you know
people
this? That
pumping
there's no more
propaganda at you.
controversies. Like, not a single controversy on the internet where there's 2 sides of the thing. Like, everything
with
has a
bigots
clear
and the good
answer.
guys.
Yes, like bigots and good guys. Yes, literally. Like, on every single issue. Every single issue. It's like,
This is what I've been calling the mega narrative, right? The mega narrative is the harmonization of all of the narratives into one singular narrative that just means everything we didn't say is wrong. Right?
Well,
All truth comes from us, all power resides in us. This is the essence of totalitarianism, and that's what we're seeing right now.
Not to turn a discussion we had in here to go too long, but it's the whole thing of the entire conceit of the left has always been that the right are evil.
Yeah.
And that they are justified doing anything that they want because the right is evil.
man, I'll tell you something else regarding that. The thing that blew my mind and the most refreshing thing that I have ever seen in the last 5 years was the vice presidential debates. Because for the first time, I saw a right winger actually talk with a left winger and have a debate. Without terms of service, without the chaperone telling them what they're allowed to say and what, like literally anything went. And that was so bizarre because it should be the normal. It shouldn't be like the abnormal. And when you look at the U.S. Senate, like if you watch a couple of clips from there, you'll notice that a Republican would come up, he would say something, and then a left winger, the Democrat would come up, and he would say something completely different. And they just talk past each other. It's like they don't address anything. Like in the Kavanaugh case, you have someone and he says, it's like, well, the accuser couldn't even point when it happened, and there's no evidence, and that's a Republican. And then a Democrat would come up and it's like, Dr. Ford has said very credible things because blah blah blah. They don't even have a conversation anymore. I don't know if it's the same in the UK Parliament.
Well, it's been the same forever. I mean, why isn't Ben Shapiro regularly having conversations with, like, someone else on the left?
He used
Why
to-
not?
Well, that's not.
He used
the
to
problem
change
is
my mind
that's
format, yeah.
That's not the
No, it's not.
discussion that the left is having. The right is having a discussion saying, well, maybe we can start this by debate. The discussion the left is having is shooting Trump supporters in the streets a good thing?
Yeah. Should
That is
we
what the debate is
actually be
all
opposed to free speech and critical thinking?
I mean, I know David don't like this. That's why I keep saying that the left as a political movement are evil. Because they are. Because they have moved beyond reasonable discourse.
They
are no
become
longer,
into a virtue, yeah.
they are no longer interested in any kind of reasonable debate, and they don't reciprocate people's rights. It's like the Hawking sneaker meme of white communist people. Rights need to be reciprocated. The left don't respect your rights to exist, so I don't think you should respect their rights to exist. It's mutually assured destruction, is what it
Well,
is. And
since you've used two definitions of left, which one are you talking about this time?
I mean them as an organized power structure, them as a political force.
So there's a great super chat here. They don't attack free speech; they attack the right to assemble. That's a really great point.
Yes.
Because the staging posts that are things like Parler were very, very useful for networking and coordination, keeping people on the same page, and keeping people feeling like they're a part of an organized movement. And that's why they know that Twitter's so powerful, frankly. And that's why the right really needs to get their shit together.
You are so fucking right.
Gab
when you-
works. Let's use it.
When you open my eyes and you pointed out that when you look at what's trending on Twitter, it's absolute sheer insanity. It's like Holocaust and Nazis and like these things don't come up in real life. And then I look at what's trending on
Why is that
Parler.
relevant?
Yeah, and I look at what's trending on Parler. It's like here's 10 reasons why sex is better than golf. And I'm like, that's wholesome as fuck. It's like, oh my god, that is a platform that I would rather go to.
Yeah,
I mean,
Twitter
Parler
is
was-
an absolutely insane place.
Parler was, I don't know, Parler's a bit of a honeypot. I don't like Parler. I don't like the people found it. I don't like the amount of personal details they're trying to get people to hand over.
There's nothing wrong with Parler. It's exactly the same as everything else. It's just conservative.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get it. Like Facebook data mines you like never before, and there's
Yeah.
people who have Facebook accounts. And it's like,
I just
don't
don't,
like
I don't
Parler
think
because
Parler's a particularly good service when you have something like Minds right there, because
Yeah.
Minds is like the fixed version of all of this.
yeah, but
Everything
like,
is just
the reason I was using Parler is
Yeah,
because
Gab's
companies
right,
started
fine.
using it. Like when you have companies and newspapers using a service, then you know it's good. And
Yeah.
that's why they shut it down.
They had like more normies on there. So.
Yeah, like I want the place with normies. That's what I want. Busting through some more super chat. Thanks for defending my point against this crazy guy on Twitter yesterday. Plus for the cat found. Thank you, I appreciate that. Early drafts of the U.S. Declaration of Independence had life, liberty, and private property. Then private property was changed to pursuit of happiness. That is,
Yeah, it's because if you turn property into a right, then someone has to provide it, and that was what the French did, and the Americans didn't. They turned it into pursuit of happiness, which is actually achievable.
Yeah, because I mean, if you are allowed to pursue something, then you can get it, but maybe you won't.
But it's
but
not
then isn't banning marijuana anti-constitutional?
Probably. Yeah.
I think so, actually, yeah.
So what should we do? Hunker down until their empire collapses on itself? Will it collapse on itself?
Yes, I think it will collapse on itself. I think that the MAGA group is like literally half of the Republican Party. Like
More
that is a massive block.
Please, V, don't delete the stream. I will absolutely delete the stream.
Fuck.
They don't attack free speech, they attack right to assemble. We've read this one. You are all late to the party. As Jones has been talking about this for years. People's lives are not comfortable. People are uprooting their lives here to flee blue states. Trust me, people are legitimately scared.
That was what I was going to get to with UV. It's like, oh, well, people are too comfortable. I don't think they are. I think
I didn't say people are too comfortable. I said, no, I said the establishment has the ability to control people.
whoever it was that said it was wrong. I think people's lives are getting much more uncomfortable a lot more quickly, and I think that this is something that we need to be. I mean, look, the food prices are dramatically increasing in the US right now. Well, that's not good. That's really not
Didn't
good.
Bill Gates buy most of the farmland now? Like,
Bill Gates is now the biggest private landowner in America in terms of farmland, yes.
He
He's also
owns
buying
like,
the water sources.
entire countries worth of land at this point. It's like, right.
what the fuck is he wanting to do with it? Maybe
Well,
like
he
keep it and allow it to-
understands that it's going to become very, very valuable.
Oh yeah, I mean in a world where you eat bugs and there's less meat, then the less meat that it is going to only be afforded by the very rich and it's going to
Eat
be
the
very
bugs,
expensive.
live in the pod, consume the shit content on Netflix, drink the shit water. This is the future, man. And Bill Gates is on the wave of it. He knows it.
It's almost like they're trying to probe and see what they can get away with making people do. It's like the whole triple nesting thing.
Like, it's humiliation. Like, I can make them drink shit water.
It is ritualistic. I think it's ritualistic humiliation. That's what they do, and that's what they're trying to do opponents.
Did you see John Tron's tweet?
I did.
Yeah. It's like, wear 3 masks. Wear 3 masks. Shut up. Everyone knows that's nonsense.
Well, you know, like here's an interesting thing, right? Like viruses can go through the eyes. Why don't they talk about covering your eyes if you actually want that extra security?
Oh well, there we go.
Yep.
Who fucking knows, eh?
Well, yeah, I did want to bring up a few things though, just to go back a bit. I mean, Scrump, you mentioned that the left they're like anti-scientific. I'm not entirely sure about that. I don't think that they're correct. I think their science is bad, but I do think that they absolutely worship science. They're definitely like scientism.
Okay, they don't
Yeah.
worship. No, they don't worship the scientific theory. They worship the academia, and that's totally different.
Yeah, it's the power and the prestige that science has.
They
I've been
don't
studying
worship
the
science at
philosophy
all.
of science recently, actually, and it's really interesting how they exhibit all of the characteristics of a paradigm that's about to change.
Well, what I mean by science is that you have the scientific method, right? Like you have the observation, the experiment, the hypothesis, the observation, the experiment, and the conclusion, and then you have to reproduce it through peer review. That's science. That's hard science. What they worship is academia, the social science, and that like it depends. I mean, in a normal place where you have the free market of ideas and everyone can talk and discuss, yeah, okay, that's good. But when you start controlling things and you just completely eradicate certain points of view, and you have like the circle jerk peer review, then it stops being science and it starts being preaching.
Well, I think that's part of it, but not all of it. Because if you look at like Marx's historical materialism, right, and you talk to the so-called scientific socialists, their position on science is that if we know enough, we can control things. And I mean, on some level, yes, but on many levels, no. So it is knowledge leads to power. Therefore, they worship knowledge. They can
Well,
power.
in the social media's point of view, isn't it?
Yeah, but like that was Hayek's objection with the knowledge problem is that no person can ever know enough to accurately centrally plan an economy.
Well,
That's
they
too
say,
much for
they
anybody
say
to know.
stupid stuff like the science is settled, which is science is never settled by definition.
Yeah.
It's only ever really just refined.
Yeah.
They are not people who agree with the actual principles of scientific pursuits. They just want to worship experts who back up their point of view. That's it.
But you
It's
know what I
deference.
noticed? Like here's something very interesting.
Hang
Right?
on, before we move on from this, right? I really think this is about paradigms because I've been studying this a lot. And there's this guy, Thomas Kuhn, who has a theory essentially of the sort of he called it the structure of scientific revolutions. It was a book he wrote, and it's about how paradigms prevent you from seeing a different point of view. Right? The evidence that you observe and perceive is informed by the paradigm you're in. It's that you can't really just escape the paradigm you're in either. And the new paradigm that is created from the flaws and the missing parts of reality you're not paying attention to ends up superseding your paradigm when the preponderance of evidence essentially swings a greater number of people to the new paradigm, with the thing essentially being a social effect. So it's when the powerful and important scientists actually go over to the other paradigm because they've got a weight of evidence on their side, and the other paradigm will essentially subsume the previous one by explaining it and explaining the anomalies it has explained away or ignored, right? And so and there's no hard line or any definitive point, but that seems to be a fairly true representation of how the history of it has gone, right? And so when they're getting to this point where they've got a bunch of propositions that are really fundamental that they ignore, I think that's when you're looking at essentially the dam will break, and everyone's like, look, a woman is just now a human female. There is a biological thing, there's genetic, we can identify these things. 2 + 2 = 4. Sorry, but all of this nonsense has to stop. So I think that will happen at some point.
Yeah, I think so too.
And actually, I'm going to make a video calling you out on this because it's the emperor has no clothes analogy. And I'm going to make a video explaining that you're wrong, because when people show that the emperor has no clothes, you know what the emperor does?
It doesn't matter.
He grins and he keeps walking. Do you know why? Because he's got a big cock and he's
Yeah,
got
that's
power
not
and no one
true.
can touch him.
That's
That is
not
literally
true.
the story. It is
That's
absolutely
not. It's not true.
Yes, it is. It's in the story.
Let me jump in here because this is now my second objection. Because before the stream, V, a couple hours ago, you and I had the discussion of where does morality come from, and you said power.
No,
And
I said no. I
Then
said
that's the leftist.
no. I said the reality of the world, not the one you wanted, but the one that is that the people in power get to enforce whatever morality they want. So
You don't understand the structure of power. You don't understand how power is created. Power is created through legitimacy, through people accepting legitimate authority.
I don't think
And
people have to accept it. I mean,
course
okay,
they-
when you say no, hold on. When you say accept it, I don't mean like they actually have to believe it. I think it can be
No,
enforced.
they just have to
enforced.
accept it.
No,
They
like
just have to
okay.
accept it.
So do you believe trans women are women? Go back. You don't actually have to believe. You just have to say the correct thing.
Yeah, I'm not saying you have to believe. I'm saying they just have to accept that the king is legitimate, right? They don't.
Or
they
to
don't
be
have
afraid to raise against the king.
Yeah, but that's a different matter. Anyone who is caught doing that will be dealt with as an enemy of the state,
Yeah.
right?
I
But
mean, you
the-
can rule through tyranny, is what I want to say. It's like you don't need the consent of the ruled.
Yes, that's true, but that's a very short half-life, right?
No, not really. Like there's a lot of tyrannies that have lasted throughout the year. I mean,
Yeah, but
Stalin's
there are way more that don't, right? They're way more that don't. It's actually quite difficult to rule through tyranny.
yeah, but like you can like the problem is like you can rule through tyranny and just tyrannize half the population. If the other half supports you, then you're still good.
Yes, you can, but these things are not like this is not the secure way, right? That's the way of the weakling. That's the way of the person who has no legitimate authority, right? The legitimate authority prevents the need for tyranny, and the left has lost legitimate authority, and they know it. Right?
But look at China, man. Like look at China. You know how long have they been in power? Look at North Korea. Like how long have they been going through?
Yeah, I'm not saying that aren't examples where that has happened. There are, right? There are, but we are not China, and in the West, legitimate authority actually still matters.
Yeah, you're definitely not China because I looked at New Year's in Wuhan. There were millions of people in the streets, and in New York there was the single person celebrating.
Yeah, but
You're
that's
absolutely
because-
not China.
do you know
Like,
what? Yeah, but do you know why? It's because people still view the US government as a legitimate authority. It's the same here, right? People have been literally almost everyone has just obeyed the lockdown. It's so weird. It's so fucking weird.
It is,
It's
isn't
just
it?
because the government has said, look, we're going to do this lockdown, and everyone's like, okay, then I wish you'd raise it, and then I went data.
I think it's because social media. Okay, because they can control what people communicate, and most communication happens on social media now. And they wouldn't be able to do this with a phone.
It's
or the
not
mail.
that.
And
It's a moral
hold on.
question.
No,
It's a moral
no, I
question.
disagree. It's because of surveillance state. Like if you go out and you do something, like for example, you go in a place, a pub without a mask, right? Someone films you on their phone, puts it on social media, you will never get employed ever again. Like your
No,
face
that's
is
true.
now on the internet.
I don't think that's true. And I don't think people think that.
I'm happy to defend that, guys, I'm afraid.
Well, I don't know how we can sell it, but
I just that doesn't seem to be the experience. It's just people are just accepting the fines.
Well, if I were to jump back a little bit, one of the books that I'd say I'm like only a fifth of the way through it yet is because you mentioned this morning, sorry, I'm reading a lot of books.
Yeah, I know.
Christaki's The Evolutionary Origins of a Good Society. And basically, it makes the argument that there's a significant biological component to morality.
Yeah.
And that is something that I do believe, which is why I think that rights are universal. And we've all had this conversation many times in private. but basically, when you and I were talking, I was mainly asking, what is the source of morality? And I don't think it's just power. I
100% think it's power. I mean,
Yeah, but that's because
No,
you
like,
come from
rephrase-
a communist state.
I think morality comes from power. Like for example, why is it that misgendering is wrong? Like who enforces that? You know, if I would have said it 6 years ago, no one would have cared. It's not like it's a good idea that everyone just was peacefully convinced. Like most people follow it because they're afraid of the repercussions.
Well, I think the problem with this point of view is that if morality comes from power, and you have no power, you have no moral objection to something that you don't like.
No, because you can still not like it because it's not to you and you don't like being oppressed. So you can try to gain power and gain support in order to overthrow the current power and you be in power.
Yeah, but your attempts to do so would be immoral if power is the only source of morality.
Yeah.
Because you have
No,
power.
because no. I said that power is the thing that enforces morality, right? But you can have a different version of morality that would be used to justify overthrowing the current power. So,
Okay, but what is the source of morality then?
well, it's whatever the people that are trying to gain power want to come up with. So, for example, if you live under an oppressive British regime, then you want to come up with a liberal ideology in order to overthrow it. And if you have a liberal state,
hang on. No, the revolutions against the British Empire were never liberal. They were
Well, the
always
American Revolution
socialistic
wasn't
or
liberal.
sort of ethno-nationalistic.
no, the American one was liberal.
The one, okay, one. But all
That's
of
what I
the-
was talking about.
Yeah, but that's the one done by a bunch of Englishmen. All of the other ones have been something else. And there've been loads. Like the decolonization of the empire was viewed in these countries as kind of revolt, you know, we're going to throw off British rule, and a lot of them brought in just like radical socialist governments.
Oof, someone in the super chat, source of morality is language.
Well,
You know, like,
that's
no,
just
hold on. Like, this is actually very interesting because I noticed, like, most of the cancellations, like 99% of the times people get canceled, is because of speaking. Like, they're not concerned about actions. They're only concerned about the words people say. So in a society where everyone was mute and didn't talk with each other, like, the left would not be able to cancel people. Like, they were literally pissed off that they can't cancel Mr. Bean. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, there was an article with the leftist that was livid they can't cancel Mr. Bean because Mr. Bean said something that's, like, right-wingish, and because of, like, I think he spoke for free
Mr.
speech.
Bean is right wing. Is that where we are now?
Yes. And they were livid that in his body of work he doesn't speak, so they couldn't find anything to cancel him with.
Did he wear blackface?
No, he did not wear blackface. So you can see the conundrum that they're having because he doesn't speak in his works. But yeah, no, like if the source of morality is language, this is why they try to control language so that people don't come up with new morality.
Okay, I think we're going to head off to bed then.
Well, thank you for being here. I'm going to bust through some super chats really fast.
Yeah, I should probably go too because I got to do my own stream in an hour or so. Maybe a
I
little
wanted
less.
to talk to you about morality, but
We'll do it right now. We'll do it quick.
See you guys.
so yeah, no, like okay. So my thesis is that might makes right. Like everything that happens in a society is because the mighty will it.
Okay, but how does that make you any better than the communists who also believe the same thing?
Well, just because the communists noticed an objective fact that 2 + 2 = 4, and I noticed it as well, doesn't mean that those are the entire similarities. Or like I would have to say that 2 + 2 = 5 in order to make me different than the communists. I mean, the way I view it, like the people in power try to craft a narrative so that they remain in power. And there's different ways to gain power. You can gain power. You can remain in power through tyranny, or you can just remain in power as a benevolent person. And
Well,
it's also
okay.
the subjective thing. Like for example, a lot of people don't want to do to others what they don't want done to themselves. So just because they're in power doesn't mean that they don't have empathy. Because empathy is a human function that exists because of evolution. So a lot of people generally have it. Like most people aren't psychotic. They're not like, okay, well, I'll just do these things and you know.
Well, I do agree with you there, and I do think that if there is a source for non-power based morality, it would probably be empathy.
Yes, I do agree with that. I think that religion used to be, but like a lot of people call religion objective, and I disagree because if you look at a country throughout history, even though it has like the same religion, its morality changes dramatically over the years. For example, the idea that the Pope, the Borgias, I think the Borgia, they came up with it like paying for for redemption. Like you go to the church, you pay money, and you get redemption. That was considered immoral a couple of years before them. So it's because religion doesn't like even if God was real, God isn't the one talking to people. It's people interpreting the Holy Bible, and people are subjective, and their interpretation of the Holy Bible is subjective and can change throughout time. So technically, you still don't have objective morality.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Which is why I try to use the term universal more than objective, because I'm not a religious person at all. But my problem is if the moral code actually is might makes right,
yes,
then when you actually do gain power and and let's say that you have enough power to rule without fear of any kind of revolution against you, why wouldn't you be a tyrant?
But you probably will. Like the only reason I think that people in power throughout history showed restraint is because they understand that at one point they might lose that power. Like someone more powerful than them can come along. But if you were to have like, I think like the perfect example would be the comic book Injustice, where Superman goes evil and he starts a dictatorship. There is absolutely no way I wouldn't believe that would be like the most tyrannical regime that the world would ever see.
But if that's the case,
hold on, I can tell you how it's like. Imagine when you play a video game of Theme Park Tycoon and you can do literally any shit you want without consequence. That's literally how it would be.
Yeah, you just have roller coasters going to the ground and stuff.
Yes,
I know the game. Yeah. But yeah, so if that's the case, then how are we any better than like the worst of us? How are we better than the communists? If the communists are as bad as we all say, and I think that they are, how are we better than them? If push came to shove, if we had that kind of power, we would do the same thing.
Well, I think that empathy plays a role, and we discussed about it. I, for example, wouldn't want to hurt other people, and by the idea that you're taking away people's land, that's going to end up in violence. And I don't want my property taken away, so that's why I would fight the communists. And if I would get in power, I wouldn't take other people's property away.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you are accepting empathy and whatever comes out of empathy as being part of morality, then your morality can't only be might makes right. There has to be something else there. Yeah.
Well, no, like what I'm trying to say, okay. You're trying to find the grand narrative, and I'm just explaining to you how the world works. You know, you're trying to define like how the world should be, and you're trying to find an anchor. I don't think there's an anchor, and I think that it is right now might makes right. Like if a burglar comes into your house and beats the living shit out of you, right? Like he's mighty, he can do whatever he wants. What do? You go to someone higher than him. You call the cops, and the cops are more powerful than the burglar, and then they get to install the justice of the land upon him.
Yes, yeah, but that is talking about the real world mechanisms, not what morality is.
Well, if you want, like the explanation from the chat is really good. Yeah, morality comes from language.
Yeah, maybe.
But it's not only that. Like you need someone powerful to have morality. Now, power can exist in different things. You don't need to have absolute power. You can be like a religious leader. You can be a corporate CEO. You can be an academic. Because the thing is, if you come up now with like, let's say, the best moral advice that humanity has ever heard, if you're the one saying it, it will probably not matter because you don't have any power.
Yeah. I'm somebody who thinks that power is not part of the equation. Power is very clearly part of the equation, but I don't think it's the only variable. I think if you're powerful, like even ridiculously powerful, powerful enough to force people to do what you want them to do, even without any kind of blowback, and you lack on every other vector of morality. I don't think that you're moral. I think you're just powerful. Like that's it. You can force people to do immoral things, but that doesn't make them moral.
I mean, it depends, because I don't believe in objective morality. Like, and the best example is not only just looking at a society through the time period. Like, burning witches was considered moral in the past, and it's not now. But you can even say, okay, drinking wine is considered moral for us, but for a Muslim, it's insanely immoral. Eating a cow is moral for us, but it's considered insanely immoral by an Indian. So, like beating a dog is considered immoral by us, but when the Asians have like that, festivity where they eat dog meat and they have to tenderize it before, they don't have a problem with that. Killing a live bull by torturing it is considered immoral, but in Spain, it's allowed. So I don't think like you have objective morality. Like you want it to exist, but I don't think it does in the real world.
Well, then we get to the question of how, by what right do you object to the Nazis exterminating the Jews?
Well, it's the thing that I wouldn't like it done to me, and it's the empathy aspect of it.
Yeah, but the thing with empathy is that because it is a near universal trait of our species, that is as close to something like universal morality we're going to get. And even then,
okay, because this is interesting. Like nations that commit such atrocities, they deny them. I mean, at the Nuremberg trials, the Nazis denied them, and you also have like other nations that committed like the Tiananmen Square massacre, and they denied it. So I suppose like you might have convinced me that empathy is the closest thing you have to universal morality.
Yeah, so I think they can't simply say yes, we did it and we're proud of it. They have to appeal somehow to that empathy, or if they're not appealing to it, then they're denying that it happened because they know on some level it's wrong. So I think that there's empathy is the closest we get to universal morality.
Although if you look at ISIS and like radical fanatical extremists which believe that there is a God and that if they don't act in a way to save the souls of the heathens, then God will punish the heathens worse. So they're actually doing good. But then like you can probably still say it's empathy because they view the idea that they wouldn't want to be in hell, and if they can save other people from being in hell, then it's a good thing.
Well, it's not just that. Did you see the video of a year or two ago of a bunch of very obviously former ISIS fighters fleeing to Europe as refugees, and they were asked, "What did you all do in ISIS?" And they all said they were cooks. You see that video? They're like, "I was a cook."
No.
Next guy, I was a cook. They were all just ISIS cooks. Yeah. Like 100 ISIS cooks because they didn't want to say they had committed atrocities.
Well, I don't think that's because they realized that the atrocities are wrong. I guess like that's just like they wanted to go past the border and they know the procedure and the law of the land.
Yeah, there's also a practical component to that too. I just thought it was funny. That reminded me.
No, you're absolutely right. But yeah, I think so. My statement is that if you want morality, you need to have power to enforce it. I'd even promote it.
Yes,
yeah, like if you have like a really good idea right now, and it's a very moral statement, if you don't have like the ear of the people, no one's going to listen to it. Like, for example, if the CEO of a major company says something, he's more likely to enforce that morality than anyone else.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, but just to go back a bit, the reason why I think empathy is at least something approaching some kind of universal morality for humans is because if you take it off the table and you say, you know what, it's all culturally relativistic. There is no universal moral code that we have to all follow regardless of our culture. Okay, there's actually a fair bit of evidence for that position, but the problem with it is that you can't ultimately object to the Nazis because they will say, well, this is our culture, exterminating the Jews is just our culture.
Isn't that what Joe Biden did to China right now?
Exactly, and that's why that's immoral. We know on some level that's immoral, even if we can't describe it, because it's not just cultural relativism.
Well, it's empathy. Like you're thinking, all right, like I wouldn't want to live in a country where an entire group of people gets exterminated. Even if I was a sociopath and I literally like didn't care, you would still make the argument that okay, well if they did that, like if the government is capable of doing that, then it means that it can do the same to me at one point. And even the worst sociopaths, like even the most unhinged people, they still care about themselves when it comes to it.
Yeah, I do think so.
So it's like self-preservation in a way.
It can be, but I think it's more than that too. I think like if you see somebody who's suffering in a way that you will never, like it's in a movie or something, you still feel empathy.
Yeah,
you won't suffer that way.
Yeah, it's like why a lot of people can't watch war movies.
Yeah.
But
you
know what's interesting? Like if you see like you step on a snail and you look at it, you don't really feel anything because like you don't have external skeleton. But
actually, I did step on a snail when I was a kid and I did feel something.
All right, well, okay, fine. Like if someone let's say starts cutting up a lobster, it's not the same like someone cutting up a cat. And the reason is that the closer it is to another human, like the closer it looks, because a cat like has like lobster's got like many feet and it's got like crustacean and it's different. But a cat like a cat has a head, got like two hands, 2 feet, and you really feel that. And it's also interesting because a lot of kids like they understand that like pulling a cat's ears is painful, but they don't understand that pulling a cat's tail is.
I didn't know that actually.
Yeah, because like they don't have a tail, they can't empathize with it. Like they just don't feel the same thing.
Yeah. But I do want to go back to it because there's kind of a point here that I want to make. When it comes to the whole, you can't condemn Nazis because it's their culture, like that argument. The common argument against it is the consequentialist argument, where you say something like, well, you're still creating a bad end, so therefore that's immoral. But then the problem is that the Nazis can also answer that with consequentialism when they say, well, by our moral standard, this is actually a good end. We think that it's a moral good to exterminate them, so therefore it's good that we do it. So like that is my main problem with consequentialist ethics, is that you still have to judge how you determine what a good end or a bad end is by some kind of ethical standard. And if that's just going to be consequentialism again, you end up in a recursive loop where you are good because you are good.
Yeah, but like if you look at the Nazis, the same like China, people didn't call them out at the time because they were powerful. And I mean Hitler was in Time magazine. I understand that before World War II, there were a lot of political people that wanted to speak out against the Nazis, but they were also censored. And it was the same thing because like major companies in the US wanted to do deals with Germany and they couldn't call out the regime because they were afraid like their deals are going to be cut because the Nazi Germany had all the power when it came to economic dealings. So that was my point, that the more powerful you are, the less likely people are going to call you immoral, but the powerful people get to call you immoral. So for example, when China looks at the Hong Kong thing with Blizzard bends the knee and they're like, oh wow, what this guy did is very immoral, like saying free Hong Kong in our stream and whatnot.
Yeah, see, I agree with that, but that's still like a conversation about the practical effects of morality, not morality itself. And I mean, you're right, everything that you said is correct, so I'm not saying
yeah,
it's wrong.
I'm looking at the world as it is. I'm not looking at the world how I want it to be or how it should be. I'm just like, this is what I'm seeing.
I'm not even looking at the world.
Okay, let's put it this way. Okay, let's put it this way. If the Nazis would have won, do you not think that the world would be very different right now in terms of morality, like in terms of what people are allowed to say, like the censorship would have censored different things, so on and so forth.
Yeah, of course.
Right. So like that's what I'm trying to say when I say like morality comes from power.
Sure, but like even though we won, we can still look back on our own past and say, well, there are certain things that our ancestors did that were bad. We're not guilty. It's not an Attack on Titan argument I'm making here because we're not guilty for it.
Because your ancestors doesn't have power, so you're free to call them out. But like, let me put it this way: there are certain figures that have power because people in the present give them power, and if you were to call them out, you'd be in big trouble. So,
well, who are you afraid of calling out right now?
Okay, let's say when RGB passed away, right? If you were to bring out something bad about her, you'd get banned from Twitter. Martin Luther King would be an example. Like even if he actually, like I don't know the life of the man, I don't know, but I'm just hypothetically speaking, like you would find something, and you would say something negative, it's because of the cultural ramifications that you'd be called out.
Well, sure, but like when RGB died, I didn't say anything, not because I was afraid of getting banned. I didn't care about that.
Absolutely.
I did for other moral reasons.
Well, actually, you did say that it's getting hot in here, and you had a thumbnail with her and fire.
That was a joke, but like,
yeah, but.
Like the point is, like you and I can get together and do a stream on all of the really terrible things that China has done, and just because China has power doesn't make those things any less terrible.
No, but it makes it so that China doesn't get called out.
Well, if we do the stream, at the very least, we're doing it.
And not to mention, it's like there's also the thing. It's like okay, you can call it out, but you don't really feel that your life is impacted by it. Like you don't have the visceral reaction. Like okay, if China does something horrible to the Uyghurs, I mean, sure, you can say that's bad, but you're not going to lose sleep over it. But if the Canadian government would do something towards an ethnicity in your country, then all of a sudden you'd have much of a bigger problem sleeping at night.
I don't think so, because that's happened here. Like I mean,
but if it was happening right now, like if today, let's say China would round up a bunch of people.
Well, the closest example I can give you is that the residential school system, which was known, this is not just like a leftist talking point, this is actual history. It was known in Canada for systemic abuse of Native people. They closed in 1993. Like it's still within my lifetime. And back then, there was a lot of forced cultural assimilation, a lot of forced abandonment of languages. They would basically, there was a lot of family separation. This is not like a border thing. This is
like in Canada.
Yeah. And there was also a lot of under the table sexual abuse that happened to these kids. And basically the government turned a blind eye to it. And the system was closed in 93. That's still within my lifetime. So it's not like it's an ancient history thing.
Yeah, but like if it happened today, it would affect you a lot more than what China is doing right now because it's close to home.
But there were people back in 93 who did not fear the Canadian government and said this is fucked up. They said it then.
Yeah, but okay, it also depends because like Canada is not, despite of what it did, it wasn't a tyrannical regime like the USSR was. If you were in the USSR, you would call that, you would just be disappeared.
Yeah, of course. Like there's difference in consequence, obviously, too.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason the USSR lasted for as long as it did.
Right, but does that mean that the USSR was immoral in doing that stuff, though? Just because the consequence was greater that people wouldn't call it out?
No, but like the reason people didn't call it out is because it was considered immoral to call it out.
Well, sure. Well, I mean, no, it was because they didn't want to get gulag themselves.
But like no, they were legitimate. No, like in the USSR, you had a massive number of people that were legitimately patriotic, and they actually believed that everything is done by the USSR is done for the good. So like for example, when they genocided the kulaks, there were people that it's what Gina Carano said, which is why she got banned from Twitter. Like the persecution of the Jewish people didn't start with the soldiers persecuting them; it started with German people beating and attacking them on the street. And the reason for that is because of the propaganda that the Nazi Party said, which created this morality in the mind of the people at the time that just like now you have the morality to punch a Nazi. It's like they dehumanized the people to the point where the rest of the country said that anything goes against them.
And I mean, yeah, like you can create morality in that sense, but does that make it moral though? I guess is the question.
I mean, for the people at the time, they would definitely think it's moral. So
Well,
yeah, I
then-
mean, you need an objective standard. Like you need someone that's, I don't know, outside the system in order to say that it's moral. I personally don't think it's moral, right? But people at the time thought it's moral.
Yeah,
and like for example, we're eating meat right now. Okay, like we're killing animals for food. The question is, like in 500 years from now, will people look back at us and think that we were barbarian savages and what we did is just completely atrocious? You know,
To be honest,
slaughterhouse, they would think it's just the worst thing ever.
Yeah, they'll have like lab grown meat and stuff. So no, I see what you mean. Yeah, but I do think that empathy is the key here because you can be indoctrinated to hate people, and yet when you're lying in bed at night, you can still kind of feel that empathy kind of kick in, where it's like, I know I'm supposed to hate them, but I still feel bad about killing a bunch of them today, and that doesn't go away. You
Yeah,
can't.
absolutely. I mean, no, it can go away because you're thinking that you're doing it for like some grander purpose. I mean, like, do you think Antifa feels guilty for punching Nazis, for example, even if like they find out that it wasn't really a Nazi? And
I think if they killed one and then like gave a big speech about how that was good, and then they were lying in bed at night by themselves, I think there'd be a voice in their head telling them, "Hey, no, you were wrong," and they would never admit it. I don't think, but I think it would be there. Unless they were like purely sociopathic.
well, let's go to more complex issues. Okay, like let's look at the worst thing that I can think of, which is eugenics. And this was not just in Germany, as people think. It was in Sweden. I think the United States had programs, and various other places. And the idea was that if you castrate people with certain disabilities, then you can eradicate that illness from the population. So, for example, trisomy 23, right, like Down syndrome. So, if you castrate people with Down syndrome, then you're going to have fewer people suffering from it. Would you consider that moral or not? Because like that was the science consensus. It was the scientific consensus, at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's moral, no. But in terms of the scientific side of the conversation, I don't know enough about it, to be honest.
Well,
but I mean,
if it's a disease that's passed throughout the genes, like it's a genetic illness, then yeah, if you make sure that people with that illness do not reproduce, then you're not going to have that illness anymore.
Yeah, but I don't think that is moral. No.
Based on what? I mean, at the time, people thought it is, but like, I know why it's not. Like I can justify because I wouldn't like it done to me.
Well, it's not done to me, even though I wouldn't like it done to me. It's because of consent. And I think consent is the cornerstone of this.
Well, okay, so then would you consider the current quarantine measures to be immoral?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, but what if like without the quarantine measures, people would actually get sick and die in record numbers?
I mean, still, nonetheless. Like, I think if you have to force somebody to do what is otherwise a good thing, it stops being a good thing.
Yeah, but can you understand like why someone else would think differently and they would think themselves to be moral? Like someone else would think like this is required in order to save grandma, and I don't want grandma to die. So like the people that are having to social distance, wear masks, and not go to work, it's not that big of a suffering than a person passing away.
Well, yeah, but I would just consider them to be tyrants.
Yeah, but like no, I'm trying like to wonder like, do you see that they could view that as being moral to them, and they would not be able to understand how someone like you can think?
Yes, I can see how they would think that it's moral, but I don't think that it's moral, and I also don't think that if there does exist any non-subjective standard of morality, if it does not take into account consent, then it's not moral in that sense.
Well, okay, let's say a person gets sick with a deadly illness. All right, it is legal to quarantine that person. Like they're not going to be allowed. Like let's say someone catches Ebola, right? When he goes back, he is going to be quarantined because they're not going to allow him to walk around and pass Ebola.
Yes.
Would you consider that to be immoral? Because by your standard, you said that it requires consent, and he's like, "Oh, I don't consent. I just want to get around with my daily life."
Well, yeah, I do consider it to be immoral, but that's the thing. It's the difference between legality and morality, right? Like for practical purposes, you may need to take an immoral thing and make it legal, but you have to do that like in a very measured way. You can't just be like, oh, just because of that, I can make anything that I want legal because morals don't matter. It's like no, there has to be like it's different when you're actually ruling a nation because now you have to take into account like a whole bunch of different factors. But if you're just talking about your own personal morality, it's a different conversation, right?
I mean, I think it's moral actually. I do think that in these situations, like if a person is actually like sick with a deadly illness, like let's say someone has rabies, right? And like they're going to pass it on if you don't restrain them. Like I think restraining them is actually moral.
Right. Yeah. And the thing with rabies, I was like, that also kind of drives you a little bit insane. So there's a bit of
there's a period where there's a time period where you're saying, but like you don't know when the patient snaps, so you restrain them even when they're saying.
Well, there's also I think an easier example is somebody who has like a murderer, right?
Yeah.
Obviously a murderer who is caught and he did do it. Like there's no wiffle waffling there. They don't consent to be locked up. Yet you still lock them up. So obviously on some level, their consent is important, but it's not the most important thing. If there are some other circumstance.
I mean, the loophole is that people would say, well, the moment he did the crime, he consented to be locked up.
Yeah, something like that. Maybe
that is what people would say. Yeah.
But, like, I know that when Sargon talks about virtue ethics and he talks about an act having a moral value in and of itself, what he's describing is consent. Because he and I had the conversation a few days ago, and it was something like, okay, so if you choose your virtue to be losing weight, right? Like you're fat, like I am, you want to lose weight, and then you look at the planning of the act itself, and then the consequence of the act. The consequentialist would only say that the result is important. That is the moral component of it.
Yeah,
whereas
it's not the journey. Yeah, like the end justifies the means.
Yeah. So they would say something like, okay, whatever you do that lets you lose weight, that's moral. And it's like, well, no, because you could develop bulimia and lose weight, and that probably wouldn't be a good thing for you. And then
no, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
But then like the what's the opposite of consequentialism? The rules-based one.
Mm-hmm. Like if rules,
the deontical logician, I guess you'd say.
Yeah,
he would say
we actually hold this to account people in society. So, for example, a doctor, he's not held on consequentialism. Like he actually needs to do everything that science tells him in order to try to save the patient. But if the patient dies anyway, even though he did everything right, that's not malpractice. However, a person building a bridge, it doesn't matter how he builds the bridge needs to hold up.
Yes. Yeah.
So
I think you actually, for something to be moral, you must fulfill multiple moral frameworks. So yeah, the deontologicalist, I can't pronounce this word because it's only a word to read, but that guy, yeah, like his position is that if you follow rules, you're moral, and that also makes sense sometimes if the rules are functional. So like if you're looking to lose weight, the rules of losing weight are calories in, calories out. You follow that, you lose weight. Okay, fair enough.
Here's my argument. It's like the rules come from power, and you need to follow them. But like, what happens if Nazi Germany is in power?
Well, hold on. Let's stay with this example for a minute, because the rules in this instance come from science, which aren't politically well. They can be politically edited.
There is a mixture between science and politics. I mean,
yeah, of course, but like a government can decree that now suddenly the rules of losing weight are different, and they won't actually be different. So like
no, they can actually say that this is how you're losing weight, and if you don't do it, you're a science denier, and they're going to ban all recipes of losing weight except the ones that are accepted by the government.
Sure, then no one will actually lose weight. Like what I mean? But yeah. To get where I'm going though is that if you look at all the various components of what you would do to lose weight, all of the actions, all of the planning, all of the results, and you take away everything that is the result and everything that is the planning and the rules, you are left with only the actions. And then so Sargon and I were talking about this, and I said, okay, well, where is the moral value in the action? And he said, well, go run them. And I was like, oh, that actually makes sense because if it were just good rules and good ends, there is no reason why I shouldn't be doing it right now. There's no reason why I shouldn't be forced to do it right now by somebody with more power than me, because it would still be moral. But what makes it moral is the fact that you consent to do it at that time and place.
Yeah, I guess you're right. And I think like what a lot of philosophers do, and I think maybe this is because of postmodernism, is that once you make such an example, they will then look for an exception, and if they can find a single exception, even like 99% of the time you're right, they'll go like, see, there's an exception, therefore everything you say falls apart. And I think like I gave my example with society, like how should we hold people accountable, following the rules or the end result? And the answer that the lawmaker in my country came, like it depends on the profession. So as I gave you an example, like for a lawyer, the way you can hold him to account is not whether or not he managed to get his client off or win the case. No, the way you hold a lawyer to account is, did he do everything in his power in order to help his client? But then you look at a builder, and it doesn't matter if how the builder made the house. It's like, is the bridge on good quality? And another example is like even in the same field, so field of medicine, right? The way you hold the doctor accountable is not whether the patient survived or not, because like he can have an inoperable tumor, dies anyway. It's not the doctor's fault. It's did the doctor do everything by the book, and did he use all of the knowledge in order to try to save him? With one exception, and that is plastic surgeons. Like a plastic surgeon, if he says that he's going to give you double D tits and he doesn't provide, you can sue him for it.
Yeah.
So like for plastic surgeons, it's the end result. For everyone else, it's so like what I'm trying to say is that you're right. Like consent does seem to stem from morality and whatnot. But then like someone can point out like what about babies? Like vaccinating babies, which is the conspiracy theory of the anti-vaxxer. Yeah, like I would consider it's moral simply because like kids can't consent. But then you go and you say, well, yeah, but like so everything done to a kid would be immoral because they can't consent.
See, this is actually where I disagree with Sargon, because Sargon's position is that you own your children and therefore you can make them. And it's like, no. What you are is you are a ward of your.
Yes, a ward is a better example. Yeah, I don't think ownership is the word that he wants to go with.
It's you're a warden, sorry, not a ward. The ward is the child. You are a warden of the child, which means that you cannot violate them, but you do have a responsibility to see them brought up well, so that they can become agents who have consent later in life.
Yeah, because like the thing is, like a leftist would always like when you say that your like parents own their kids, they freak out because obviously they want the state to own the kids. But
yes,
if you're thinking about it, it's like if a kid runs away from home, you can call the cops and the cops bring the kid back. And it's a very difficult, it's a very complex relationship between a parent and a child, because if the child goes out and he's 5 years old, takes a rock and breaks a window, the parent is held responsible.
Yep.
And it's not just that, like the kids, while they have less liberty, they also have less obligations. So a 5-year-old, he's not going to be drafted in the military. He is not going to be allowed to find employment and if his parents die, he's not going to be allowed to sign away his house for a piece of candy. Right.
Yep.
So he doesn't have the right to vote at the same time. So it's not, because I had this conversation with a leftist, and he was trying to say how Netflix cuties being taken off and being into a controversy by the right is taking away kids' ability of free speech. And I'm like, okay, so you believe that because a adult director wasn't allowed to hire children, have them do sexual suggestive acts on screen in order for money, is somehow violating the right of the children to make money. No, but like seriously, the more I talk with communists, the more I'm like, what the fuck? And basically, like his conclusion is that because I do not think that it's moral for an adult to audition kids and then have them on television in front of a national audience doing sexual suggestive things so that he can make money off of it, because I don't think that's okay. I hate brown people and I don't think that's speech.
Well, I mean, it's because like the conservatives, especially like the very paternalistic conservatives, they just think that they own their kids, and that's not true. Meanwhile, people on the left, they think that kids are moral agents in the exact same way that adults are, and that's obviously not true. And I think the actual answer is that you are a steward of your children.
Yes.
And while they are not moral agents yet, they will one day be moral agents, and so you have to respect that when you make decisions for them. You have to understand that they will be an adult at some point, and they may not agree with the decisions that you make in their name. So you need to keep that in mind when you think about it.
Yeah, and it's also based on the idea that, again, the left hates the family unit, that there is some biological bond there, which healthfully people love their children, and they like if a parent forbids the child from playing on the street, it's not because they want to oppress the kid, but it's because they don't want it to get hurt.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a complex issue, but I do find it fascinating that the left constantly is like trying to argue that kids should consent, and I think it's like, you're not really doing this for the kid, you're doing this for the adult that is unable to find a person of his age.
They do say that they're freeing children from ageism.
Yeah, but they're not. They're really not. Like what they're doing is like this does not benefit the child, this benefits the adult.
Yeah.
More
Okay. I do gotta take off. Don't delete the stream. It's a good one.
No, I'm deleting the stream. I'm sorry, the stream gets deleted.
What the hell, man? Why?
Because I can. I don't want to end up like you ended up with Scrum.
We haven't said anything bad on this one.
No, except for Sargon talking about civil war, right-wingers doing terrorism. So you need to be snappy with these things. You need to figure out like the problems.
Here, can I download it before you delete it then?
Absolutely not, because the algorithm starts kicking in.
God damn it.
But tell you what, we can do another stream without edgy people, and we can.
Well, hold on a second. So I have to go do a few things, and then I'm gonna go stream on my gaming channel tonight. So I'm gonna share a little bit. If you guys want to drop by in like an hour,
I stop the stream though. Stop the stream.
Oh, no, V.
I just stop it. No, I'm kidding.
Okay. V, I don't want to run over your time, so I'll probably go in about an hour. I think it'll be done.
Yeah.
So I'll post it in the chat. It's my Game Boomers channel on Twitch. If you guys want to drop in there in an hour's time, maybe a little bit less. But yeah, thanks for having me on. V. We'll do it again soon.
Yeah, you're a great guest. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, see you, man.
Okay, well, no, I'm sorry, guys. It's just the terms of service on YouTube. Like I have seen recently people getting having their channels getting a bit strike because of the streams they had on. So I just don't want to risk it. Which is why I can keep providing you streams like this. So let me pass through some super chats really fast. Mentat, let me see if I can find yours. I remember you asked if Pepsi is better. I mean, unless you're a connoisseur, you probably won't feel the difference between Pepsi and Coke. I personally can. Like I feel like Coke is a little bit more watered down, but yeah. I will not upload this to the other site, Jaded Warlock. I want to really thank him for my GF Mon Twitter. Really have no GME. Oh, a person who likes the stock, I see. Sorry, I'm a little bit tired. It's 2:40. Fine, I'll just leave it here a little bit. The problem with dev is that biology leads to many conclusions that you would oppose. For example, that women cannot be fighter jet pilots, or that certain groups have different AQ. Yeah, I definitely like. It's not that. I mean, I don't know about the things you mentioned. If women can't be fighter jet pilots, because I heard like in World War II there were what did they call them, like night witches or something like that, with female pilots. And apparently, like, they were good pilots because they had peripheral vision and whatnot. But eugenics is a great example. You know, like that is we apply it on animals. Like if you want to have a cow that gives more milk, or you want to have a bull that's really strong, you apply eugenics. But it would be incredibly immoral to apply it to human. Like just because something is scientifically accurate and exists doesn't mean you should apply it to the population. Like that would be horrible. Source of morality is language. Put the stream on BitChute. No. Do you think this is going to last forever? No, nothing lasts forever. I mean, but at the same time, even freedom doesn't last forever. You look at human history, like very few nations managed to withstand the test of time. And even the ones that did, like China, which is one of the oldest nations in the world, they had like different governments and different way of doing things and different struggles. So no, like it's not going to quote unquote last forever. But that means like what is going to come afterwards? I mean, it can come another period of prosperity, or it can get even more worse. Like 4 years ago, I never thought it was going to get worse. I thought it's like that's the worst that could get. But apparently we were wrong. The social justice warrior worship formal logic. The issue is their premises. If you don't accept their premises, then you're either a bigot or a racist or irrational. Yeah, and I noticed like they're very, how can I say, fixed on what is it you're allowed to accept. Sorry, they're very fixed on just how much you can deviate, and it's not a lot. I mean, the only thing you can, I suppose, like contradict them is whether you want more left-leaning or less, but you're still left. Like the moment you're even like moderate or like even deviating a little bit from the left, they freak out. A new study shows that if you blindly believe new studies, you're either an NPC or a disingenuous activist. Well, most of the time it's not the studies that the problem, is how they're reported in the media. And then it's the cherry pick studies as well, because like some studies can, here's a perfect example, okay? I remember like actually having an argument with an IT guy, and I was telling him, it's like, look, man, you do not want to work from home, because he was like, well, I don't understand why I do go to my job. Like I should be able to work from home. Like there's no reason why I shouldn't. And I was like, you will not be able to work from home. Like I know you as a person. Okay, you're my friend. You do not have the mental ability to have a normal schedule. Because I work from home and I know what it means. And I'm telling you, like you're not going. And he disagreed. He showed me a study, and he was like, people are more happy when they work from home. And I'm like, okay, no, whatever. And then the pandemic came, because this was before COVID. And then like he was incredibly unhappy and he was really burned out, right? And there was even another article, I think in the Wall Street Journal, saying that people who work from home suffer massive burnout. Like 70% of the people, and they're unhappy and they're depressed. So does this mean that the initial article, that people who work from home are more happy? Well, no, that's not the point. The article only looked at a small time period. So yeah, I mean, for the first 3 months where people work from home, they were incredibly happy. But as you keep working from home, you stop separating work from home. Like they meld into the same thing. So you feel more guilty when you don't work. You feel like you're wasting time, and you end up working even more than you should. You don't manage to maintain a proper sleeping schedule. So what ends up happening is that you go to sleep and you wake up and you miss the deadline. You have family at home. Like you can have nagging kids, you can have a nagging wife. They don't understand that you're working, so they bother you. And all of these things add up. But like the study didn't take these things into account, because it's like, okay, well, the study only accounted for the first 3 months. But what ends up happening is that you're going to have people like showing you that study and being like, okay, if you doubt the study, then you're a science denier, and this is the reality. And I noticed like many people, they believe this, the science, like they believe the studies, and they will say that they're very rational people, and they're willing to change their mind if they would see an opposite study. Like if they see someone saying something else, they would immediately change their mind. But in reality, what ends up happening is that when you try to change their mind and you show them even a different study, they call you an idiot and they just shut out. Like they shut down. Like they put their fingers in their ears and they turn around and they insult you for contradicting what they believe in. So, you know, like, because the interesting thing is like if you were to go to the scientist, which conducted the study for, let's say if people are more happy working from home for the first 3 months, and you were to show him like counter evidence, and like you'd have a discussion with that person without him getting angry. But like the people that read the study from the mainstream media, they think they know the truth. It's the type of person that doesn't just think that we can discover all the secrets of the universe, but they probably think that all the secrets of the universe have already been discovered and they know them all. So when you contradict them, they get angry, because you're showing them that they don't know them all. And this is like the new type of person that doesn't read the scientific papers. Like they don't go on PubMed and read the science. They read from the newspaper. Like they read from CNN or MSNBC or whatever. And then that's what they think. And they can't change their mind unless CNN changes their mind. Like, there's no other source besides the holy CNN. Like, if I were to show them a study, then they'll be like, well, they don't believe it. I want CNN to tell me. And by the way, there's people on the right like this as well. Like, it's not just the left. You know, like I've seen people on the right do the exact same thing. It's just like human nature. I think it's because there are a couple of people that don't like to think but like to do what they're told. And this is why religion is important. Like I don't believe in religion, but like at least for those type of people that aren't the type of critical thinkers, like they just need to be told this is what you need to do, and there is no wiggle room. Like this is important. Why God said it, and you don't explain. You don't just God said it. Shut the fuck up and do it. You know, don't divorce, have kids, get married. Good for you. It's like why? But like oppression. No, like God said it. It's good. Shut the fuck up. Fauci saying wear 2 masks in the coronavirus epidemic is like Fauci saying wear 2 condoms in the AIDS epidemic. Oh my fucking God, that is so true. No, seriously, like the 2 mask thing, I still can't believe it. Like at this point, I don't know if they're trolling. It's like, okay, why not just suggest a higher quality mask then? It's just a higher quality mask. And if 2 is better, then why not 3? Why not 4? Why not 5? Why stop at 5? Why not 10? I just. And again, you know, it's like the idea. It's like, okay, the science says, like, let's assume that the science really does show that wearing 2 masks increases the safety by like 2 or 3%. At what point, like, do you also have to take into account the person's finances? First of all, masks are getting expensive. You know, like I'm pretty sure for Fauci isn't, but I got like $1 a mask here. But the other thing is like the comfort of the person. Like you still want some quality of life, right? I mean, if not, why not just put everyone in solitary prison? Like, what if a person just, you know, like wants to take the risk and like increase his quality of life? Does that not matter anymore? I guess not. You don't give honor to the dishonorable, to the American here. You find the leftist silence them for good. No, I don't agree that because like there's a lot of leftists that you can have a conversation with them and they can change their mind. Like the problem is you don't find these people on Twitter. You know, like Twitter has the activists, the people on YouTube. I think they're grifters. Like if they were willing to just change their stance and what they believe in, they would lose their audience. Like if Vosh came out and said, you know what, like, capitalism has been good for me. I'm all of a sudden I'm the same thing like Destiny. Well, what is Destiny? A neoliberal. I think he would lose his audience. Like I don't think people would stick with him. The constitutional draft you are referring to may very well have been written on hemp paper. Oh yeah, the one about instead of the pursuit of happiness, having private property guaranteed. This is why I tell Louis the boog must be an option. We don't have debates if we can't tell the other side to screw off. That's just having to submit. No, I don't think there's going to be a boog. What I think is like the way the MAGA people become radical is it's on their flag. You know, they don't tread on anything. Like they're going to be like, this is my land, this is my property, fuck off. And they're just not going to allow people to go there. Like they're going to self-segregate. So what should we do? Hunker down, blah blah blah. I read this one. I think I read them all. Let me see if there's any new ones. V took the Virgil pill. I don't get the reference. It's like a Dante, a Devil May Cry. V, I have seen medical staff using an expensive good mask and a cheap disposable mask to maintain the good mask longer on the shifts. They only get a single good mask per shift. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. And I also saw in hospitals the mask getting stolen. Yeah. But anyway, right. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for the donations. I really appreciate it. I stream daily. Unfortunately, this is why I usually don't have guests, because when I have guests, I'm worried about YouTube and I have to delete the stream. But other than that, I hope you had fun. I hope you guys were entertained.